Hey, would you be here tonight? Okay, are you ready to go there?
I am good. I'm ready.
I'm good. I'd like to welcome everyone to the commission this evening. Thank you all for attending. This is our first night back. Quite some time, so we've got a possibility of working out throughout the event. This is the meeting, which is February 17th, 2021. We're going to have a prayer by Commissioner Russo, followed by pledge of allegiance led by Commissioner. Thank you, gentlemen.
Commissioner Hanson, can I just remind all of you guys that when your mic, you have to push that little button in the middle. Make sure your green light comes on. Because like I said, we didn't hear prayer or the pledge on this side. I just want to make sure the mic is lit up and then it's pulled up to the sorry.
Just out of curiosity, this is the first time. Yeah. Thanks for coming. Our first item is approval of the agenda. We have February 17th, 2021. Look for a motion for any changes in my
I would like to make the amendment that item 7C
Commissioners, is somebody speaking right now?
Yes.
I cannot, whoever was been speaking, I had not heard one word from you.
Shield's gonna try it
Okay.
again.
I don't know my colors. I'm on green now, so here we go.
That's the color you want.
Okay,
Okay, start over. Sorry.
yep, no problem. Glad you recognize that. I would recommend that we as a planning commission forward this and approve it for final plat of the Red Waters at Sunrise Valley, phase 2 subdivision to the city council, subject to the 5 conditions herein.
Second that.
I have a motion and I have a second by Commissioner Fitzampu, a motion by Commissioner Shield. We'll go to individual voting. Commissioner Musso,
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzampu,
Aye.
Commissioner Shield.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
It's Commissioner Hanson. I'm an aye as well. The motion passes unanimously on 4A. Next up is Drew. Can you hear me okay? This is Commissioner Hanson.
Yes, you are perfect. You're sounding really good.
Kathy, can you hear me okay as well?
Yes, I can hear very well now.
Item number 5A is a road dedication. This is consideration to approve a conceptual plan for the 1165 East Bullock Street Road dedication. The applicant is Dave Holman. I believe Brandon is handling this one, or is it you, Drew?
It's Brandon.
Brandon, we'll turn the time over to you.
Okay, I'll let Drew pull that exhibit up. So the action that is being requested is a roadway dedication plat approval for a portion of Bullock Street. As Commissioner Hanson stated, this is the applicant is Overland Corporation, Dave Holman. The applicant is requesting approval of a roadway dedication plat for the portion of Bullock Street. The purpose of this roadway dedication is to dedicate the north half of Bullock Street for the access into the new Coyote Creek apartment development. Public Works Department has reviewed the plat and approved the design, and staff recommends approval of the roadway dedication for the portion of Bullock Street from the Planning Commission to the City Council.
Thanks, Brandon.
Any other questions, or are we good?
Perfect. Are there any questions or comments for Brandon or staff on item 5A from the commission?
All the improvements are completed, correct?
That is correct. It's been built for some time.
All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion on item 5A.
Commissioner Anderson, I make a motion to approve the East Bullock Street Road dedication. Dedication plat.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
It's Commissioner Musso. I second that.
I have a motion and I have a second. Individual voting. Commissioner Musso.
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzampu. Commissioner Shield.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Item 5A passes unanimously. On to item 6A. This will be a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to City Council for the Cotton Town Village plat amendment and extended. The purpose for the amended and extended is to redefine and create new lots, with the exception of lots 4, located approximately at 300 West Telegraph. Applicants are George and Kathy Staley. Drew, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you. As stated, the applicant's requesting approval of this amended final plat, Cottontown Village, and extending it, and I'll explain that in a little bit here. The reason for this amendment and extended request is simply to, as you stated earlier, redefine existing lots and create a couple of new lots within, with the exception, again, lots 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all remaining the same. We're extending on the southern boundary to include additional granted property that they received over the years. And that's this area. Let me get my fun little annotation going here for you. And I'm talking about this line here. It used to run flat straight across at the bottom of lot 8 there, but they picked up some land from Star Nursery and brought that into the subdivision. So that this area down here is that's the extended part. Also being added is lot 11 here, and I'll kind of point it out. And lot 9 is breaking off of 3, and lot 10 right above it is breaking off of the old existing lot 3. So those are the changes on this amended and extended plat for the Cottontown Village. Also, they're defining out more clearly some public utility easements that some of them needed to be moved, in which they are now. They're redefined and put in their proper place as part of this. So they're updating that, and then common access. Pardon me?
Nothing. I think that was just feedback from somebody.
Okay. Also, they are, I hope that's not me. I don't have any extra mic going, but anyway, I'll keep going. And again, just moving and relocating the public easements because of these creation of the new lots, especially lot 11. And also redefining that parking area, which is this grayish hashed area. What they do is share a common parking ingress, egress access for all the Cottontown Village here on the internal side. And that's where all these gray areas are. It's basically the designated parking within the whole development. So with that, the subdivision is going from 8 lots to 11 lots, and the acreage has increased from 5.947 acres to the new 6.06 acres. And again, that's that area down here on the south that's been added. Staff's reviewed the proposed amended and extended final plat and finds it conforms to the original PUD zoning of the development, and the subdivision also remains in compliance with the subdivision ordinance of the city. Therefore, staff would like to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the amended final plat for the Cottontown Village, which will now have a new name of Cottontown Village Amended and Extended Subdivision, changing again the number of lots and a little bit of the acreage. And that would be moved on to the city council based on the findings and subject to the conditions, which are the standard 5 for any final plat. We're just staying with those. We don't see any extra things that are needed. And I'll be glad to answer any questions the commissioners have on Cottontown Village.
Commissioners, prior to opening this as a public hearing, do you have any questions for Drew?
Drew, this is Commissioner Anderson. Just, it may just be a technicality, but I'm not sure if this is important enough. But on the staff review under recommendations, there's a spot there where it's supposed to say how much the acreage is increasing, and it just has XX.
Is that in the recommendation part?
Yeah, does that matter or not?
No, not really. I'm fine with it because we stated it and it's on the minutes, but I'll get that corrected as it goes on to city council. But I appreciate you pointing that out. I actually read over it and hope that nobody else would notice it, but you know, thanks for embarrassing. No, we're good. I'm not worried because we did talk about it in the minutes. And I will correct that when it goes to city council to put that 6.0, you know, the acreage in there like I showed you in the report above.
So Drew, this is Commissioner Musso. So with creating lots number 2 and number 9, I'm assuming there's not buildings on them now, obviously.
Well, there are buildings on them. They're existing buildings.
There are?
Yes.
So my question was going to be, is the parking requirements going to change at all because of the buildings and reducing?
Not right.
Creating lot 11, because that's right now parking area 2, isn't it?
It is, but that's where the silo is.
Yes, okay.
And that's why they wanted to break that out and have it on its own piece and not be into, you know, that area. So they put that was all, access parking area. So they wanted to create that. And again, it has its own parking. If you notice how the lot's laid out, on that. But the other ones, they will have to address parking if they build on, again, lot 10 actually is built on now, but it was part of 3, but they're breaking it off of 3 and 9. And if they build on 9 and 3 that you see on your plat right now in your overhead, those ones will have to make sure they account for any extra parking as they build and add to this.
So what's the access point to 3 then? Because it looks like it's landlocked.
Well, it's got that, if you go up, and again, with the access to it, we're fine with that. You will be able to go up that side to get to it right on that west side of lot 10, even though, because it is an easement. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I say, let me just change the color and, this area right here, because that is the access, they can then, go through this way to add, to get in that way, if that helps you. My arrow is just not working real well. It's that fried chicken I had for lunch. Does that answer that for you, Commissioner?
Commissioners, are there any other questions, commissioners, for staff prior to opening this up to a public hearing? I'm going to read something before I open this to a public hearing. This is something for a couple of new commissioners that we have, in addition to people here that might be visiting for the first time. As we begin the public comment section, I ask each of you that you'll please keep your comments relevant, clear, and not repetitive to the agenda item that you're commenting on. Our role here as commissioners is to use the comments and concerns from the general public in our consideration to recommend or to deny something to City Council. The public comment section is not intended to be a debate or a back and forth between individuals. We're happy to hear what you have to say in respect to everybody's time. This is the tricky part. We ask that you please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, which goes by very quickly when you're standing in front of the microphone, I assure you. With that being said, I will open up the public hearing for item 6A. As we open the public hearing, commissioners, I will remind you that we did receive comments that we've reviewed with regards to this agenda item that we would have already reviewed. Is there anybody here from the public that has a comment on 6A? Drew, there are also people online, is that correct, that are able to make comments, or what?
No, you'd only have your applicant. If they're not in the room, they would be online. So that would be it, but we don't have people online to speak, no.
Okay. So if there's nobody here in the chambers to make a public comment, we can close that then, is that correct?
Correct, because you got the comments that came in prior to, unless there's any other ones that Kathy might know of that might need to be, but they were told they were to come tonight anyway, so I think you're good to close it.
Okay, with that being said, I look for a motion to close the public hearing section for item 6A.
This Commissioner Musso, I make a motion that we close the public hearing for item number 6A.
Commissioner, I would second that.
I have a first and a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed. At this time, commissioners, do you have any additional questions or comments for staff or the applicant? And if not, I look for a motion on 6A.
The only thing I can say, the only comments Commissioner Anderson, the only comments we had regarding this that were emailed in, Drew answered them with his question on parking. They just wanted to know if future buildings were built, if there would be parking addressed. So, address that question.
Hey, we're having issues hearing you guys again. So please, again, make sure your green light's on, the microphone's up by your mouth. I'm sorry to keep pestering you, but I just had 2 people tell me they can't hear anything, and I noticed that as well.
It's our continued invitation to have you join us back in here, Drew.
Well, it's not me in there ain't gonna change that, but
Darn it. All right. I'm looking for a motion on item 6A.
This Commissioner Shield, I would make a motion that we recommend to the city council the Cottontown Village plat and extend it. The purpose for the amended and extended is to refine and create new lots with the exception of lots 4 located at approximately 300 West Telegraph. The applicant is George and Kathy Staley with the conditions, the 5 conditions herein.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Shield. I have a second by Commissioner Fitzampu. On item 6A, individual voting, Commissioner Fitzampu,
Aye.
Commissioner Shield.
Aye.
Commissioner Musso,
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson, I'm an aye as well. Item 6A passes unanimously. Moved on to City Council. At this point, we are at agenda item number 7A. I'm sorry. Correct. Thank you. We are going to, in fact, are there people in the audience by chance that are here for item 7A or B? That one's C. So
It's Brio.
if you're here for Brio. Okay. I just want to make sure if somebody didn't come in and they were here, we ended up putting them back at the end because this for Coral Canyon, that's still item 7C, but we're going to move that up. I assume everybody's here for Coral Canyon. Does that look correct? Okay. Just to make sure I understood, because I might have confused everybody. Is there anybody here for the Brio subdivision? Okay, perfect. We'll move on to item 7C, which we have relocated, being the first item for the preliminary plat. This is a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to City Council for the island at Coral Canyon, located at approximately 3,300 east, 1,100 north. The applicant is Cole West. And Drew, I'll turn the time over to you on that.
okay, thank you. Applicant is requesting estate approval of a preliminary plat known as the Island at Coral Canyon subdivision. The applicant is proposing 99 lots on an area of coverage of 23.621 acres. The zoning at this location is the Coral Canyon Planned Community Development, or Coral Canyon PCD. The surrounding zoning is PCD to the north, east, west, and south. This particular subdivision and area is zoned for vacation short-term rentals. This area 7B is what it's referred to. Each townhome will have a 2-car garage and a double-wide driveway associated with it. I speak that because we'll talk about parking later, and that's why I point that out, that there will be each one with the double-car garage and double driveway. There will be developed a secondary emergency access in conjunction with the existing cart path associated with the golf course. That's that area you see down here. Let me get my highlighter out, just so you know where that is. It's this kind of green squirrely area down here. That's going to be, again, just for emergency in case anything happens here at this entrance. We did this up at top of Highland. If you go up to that light, if you go north or south, both of those developments on each side of Telegraph have an emergency access. And this one was added for here in case anything happens at the inlet. We can still get an ambulance or a brush truck into the area. So that's what that green area is for. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements for preliminary plats and other city ordinances at this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. Therefore, staff would like to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Island at Coral Canyon subdivision onto the City Council. And that's based on the findings and subject to the conditions in your report. There are 2 extras that we've added. The first 12 are the standard. 13, I will read, there will be required a secondary emergency access, and that's the one I pointed out. We just want to make it in there as part of the condition. Number 14, the main amenity area shown in phase 1 of this development will be required to be completed before 33% of the units in phase 1 receive their C of O. That's something we've done on these multifamily projects, especially have townhomes and amenities. We've put a clock, so it were, that they have to have those amenities in before a percentage of the product is built out. So that's what those two extra conditions are that staff has asked to be putting in there. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that the commissioners have on the preliminary plat for the island at Coral Canyon.
Okay, commissioners, we've heard the staff report. I do want to read something before I open this up to you as commissioners, for the general public as well. Prior to this meeting, the planning and zoning commissioners, each of us up here, have received from the staff and reviewed around 100 submitted comments for tonight's meeting. As most of you were probably in attendance, at least on Zoom, when we met with the Coral Canyon folks with the project a few weeks ago, we had similar numbers, actually more. And I know I myself took a fair part of the day that day reviewing, talking with some people that had submitted their phone number, trying to get the best handle I could on the situation, because it's not very often that we have so many submitted comments. So I want to make sure that everybody is aware that everyone up here has read and reviewed. It was upwards of 100 this time. And most of these comments were very helpful, at least to me, in understanding the issues. I can't say that I understand them all. I was not on the commission at the time some of these things took place. And it was very helpful that some of the items were mentioned what happened 4, 5, 6 years ago when we weren't here. None of us were here, so that was helpful to at least have that brought to our attention. Many of the comments pointed toward the following, and I read this at first because I think that a lot of us commissioners tonight, some of our questions for Drew are going to be pointed around these comments that I tried to narrow down what most people said. Many comments noted they did not want additional vacation rentals in Coral Canyon. There was concerns over traffic, noise, and trash from the nightly rental occupants. Concern over Coal West controlling the HOA board. Lack of communication with residents about past or current proposed changes. Concern over increased number of units being requested. Concerns over the height increases of the units, which seems to be something that's in question that I, for one, would definitely love to hear some clarification on this evening. One of the things to make sure, a lot of the comments that we read came concerning the controlling interest that Coal West seems to have on the HOA situation. As frustrating as that might be for people listening, or people that read the minutes, or people that are here in the chambers, the city absolutely backs up from any involvement with anything HOA. I've had issues with my own HOA and tried to get the city involved to no avail. I understand the frustration, I understand the pain. I understand the comments. Unfortunately, that's something that we won't be able to address. I encourage the fight to continue if there's a problem, and obviously there is, based on the number of people that submitted comments in these two meetings that we're talking about. But I wanted to read that. I wrote it myself. Nobody asked me to write it. Nobody asked me any input, anything. I just simply wanted to say these were the majority of the 100 comments that I read. That's what it came down to. With that being said, I'll open it up to the commissioners for questions from Drew or staff, or even the applicant for that matter, with regards to concerns that you have.
So Drew, this is Commissioner Musso. The biggest issue that I see with this whole thing is this secondary egress. I mean, it's not, from the location of it, it doesn't look like it's going to do much good for anything, in all honesty. And given the fact that it's only a cart path, I'd hate to see a brush truck or an ambulance or anything else try to go in and out on that particular little cart path. So, I mean, if there was a blockage anywhere between the highway and that road, that's the only thing it's providing egress for. And I'm just questioning if that's even enough. Because if you have to evacuate a whole bunch of people out of that subdivision for some unknown reason, or if I'm assuming they're gonna have to have a culvert or a bridge or something going down into it. If that should fail or flood or whatever, how is that going to be a reasonable egress point? I don't know if that's your question to answer, or if that's Public Works, or I don't know. That's my biggest question right now.
Well, I think your question about evacuation, I'm not going to even touch that, because half of Coral Canyon will never get out then if you're going to throw it on an evacuation out of, like I say, I'm just going to take you up the street here. This is Highland as it crosses Telegraph. You're going to have somewhat the same kind of an entrance down to this particular area. So I just want you to keep in mind this intersection right here, okay? So what we've done for both this side of Telegraph and then there's a place over, I think, on here that we have a crash gate to get out to. Actually, I think Highland's worse off than what you're trying to talk about tonight. But I'm going to point out, it's not just a cart plat. Please don't, we're going to extend the cart path like we did the trail here. If you notice how big this trail part is, compared, here's the normal trail behind like unit, 311 North. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. But if you go in between these homes, you'll notice this concrete pad, it's more than their average 10 foot. I think it's up to 15 or 17 feet. We made them come back and widen this trail system. It's an emergency one as well. And it's probably just as long, if not longer, than the one you're looking at for this development. And it comes out on Telegraph right here by this lift station. Okay, it's the same scenario. If I needed to, I could run people through here as well, on this trail where it says 425 North, because you can't see my arrow, I found out. But let me get my pencil. I
guess the difference between those two, though, Drew, is this particular one in the Highlands is down into the middle of the subdivision, where that other one is still right there, real close to the.
Yeah, but Commissioner, I will tell you, if there would have been an access between homes closer, it'd have been closer. This is just because down here was the closest way we could tie into the street system. Okay, that's the only reason it's like that. I'm trying to answer your question, but also give you where we came and why we're at where we're at. Because this was the opening that was for the trail system to go through. Okay.
Drew, this is Commissioner Anderson. Question: Is this similar to? So I drove out there this morning looking at everything, and I saw behind, what is it, a town center where they have the gates, townhomes or whatever. I think there's something similar to this where there's essentially a road that goes behind the units, kind of between the units and the open space wash or whatever, and it goes along behind there, and then it's.
Drew, are you getting that delay?
I know it's doubling up. I'm not sure.
Sorry.
Oh, I know why. Commissioners, when you're done. Yeah. That's okay. I know what he's.
We think we figured it out in here, Drew. There was 2 microphones on.
Turn the microphones off when you're not speaking. Yes, that'll work. Sorry about that. Are we good now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Drew. So my question then is this similar to what it looks like they did at the 8th? They've got a similar deal here where behind all those, I went out there this morning at it and drove my truck on it to see how much access it had.
Okay, sorry, Commissioner. Brock or Steve, you guys know what's going on?
Trying to figure that out. Yeah, we're trying to troubleshoot.
Is it something, Drew, that one of us needs to continue to speak so you can try to troubleshoot it, or would you like us to all turn our mics off?
I think we got it.
Okay, I'm just gonna, is this the area you're talking about, Commissioner Anderson? Okay, that pathway behind there was actually access, that's where the garages are. So that's the access to get into the garages. And so this area was built as in, still just going. Your microphone's off and you're not, okay, that's, but that's what that is, was an access in case something else gets blocked on the street. And again, this is what we try when, you know, but again, when you're dealing in areas that have certain topography, he sounds really good, whoever that guy is. But going back, and I'll just keep talking. We're just going to have to let it happen. But when you go up, again, I'm using Highland as an example because people say, how'd you let people live on Highland Drive and on each direction? You know, there's only one road in, one way out. Well, you know, in cities, you're going to come across what we call peninsulas, you know, whether it be a ravine or a raised plateau. And sometimes, you know, you do all you can. Now, eventually at the far end of Highland on the north end, there will be a road added out by that water tank. Okay, because there is something. That might hopefully, that sounds better already. I know that's what's weird is that's been on the whole time, but going back to the Highland example, and I'm going to run back to my house so we can move this, but I'll finish on that, but because I know that's been the question, is that sometimes there's only going to be one road, and we can't, you know, just say, well, nobody can develop on that piece of property because it's only one road in and it's so deep. Well, you know, the fire code's written and says, you know, and even our own code says we need to have two accesses. But we're also very aware that under certain circumstances, sometimes you can't get a full-blown, you know, coming and going access out, you know, or two of them out there, because some places it's not going to happen. You know, without ruining a bunch of, you know, cuts and fills, and yeah, you can make it, but then you ruin the look of a lot of places. So getting back, there will be a road that will eventually on Highland, we're going to be blessed in the future as it builds out, even though some people who live in Highland don't want to hear that, but they know there's places coming toward the water tank. And then there will be a road that comes off. We plan on having a road that'll go off by that water tank toward I-15. Okay. That time will bring that one at that time. But now on the south end where the views are, it's going to be one access in and that's it. And so I'm glad at least we have these two other alternatives. And I know you don't like it, but again, it's not just a car. We're going to make it, it'll be brought out to whatever the fire department wants it to be for whatever they're going to be able to drive on that. Keep going. So at what point, though, do they decide there's too many build outs for that one access? Because I can understand, I mean, the North Highland on the north side, you talk about that. But I mean, you're already putting 99 units here now. Mm-hmm. And then I'm assuming they're planning for, what was it, parcel area 7A, 7 and 8, but they're not going to be high density units. No, they won't. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up. This will talk, because I know some of the comments people talk about the density. Area 7 was always from, you know, was for plan to be 151 units. That's it. That's what's approved in the PCD. So if they're going to use up 99 of them now, that leaves them on 7A, 52 units. Okay, so that's all they'll be able to put in there. That's it. So we know there's only going to be 151 units in 7A and B as a max. That's what I love about PCDs. They put limits in villages, areas, whatever you want to call them, because each one of them has a different. We know, you know, they just say, I'm going to have, here's how many acres area 7 is,
and we're putting 151 units in there. That's my density. You know, so even with this at the 99 over the 23 point something acres, I'm at 4 point something dwelling units per acre. That averages out to quarter acre lots. You as an appraiser, you know that. That's what I'm talking. It's basically quarter acre, even though there's triplexes and fourplexes with all the amenity and the open space and all the other things. This is basically just having a bunch of quarter acre lots, a subdivision, because on the acreage that's taking place is the way you look at that.
Could you clear something up for me on that point? The 151 max units that are available, the zoning that's already there for vacation rentals, could all 151 be be built as a vacation rental? Or is there a maximum that fits into that, or how does that work?
Well, the real answer, I mean, I'm not going to, pull punches, but it would be hard to meet all the setbacks. But yeah, no, you could technically, if, that area that was designated for it, and they wanted to use it all up and put 150, if we accepted their preliminary plat and met all the criteria, yeah, they could use it all up there, and then the rest of 7A would be nothing on it.
And
Well, it looks to me like it's going to be more. I looked at the area on the other side of Fairway 1. I'll finish that and then jump in. It looks like it might be custom lots. Is what I don't know what their plan is. They haven't asked. They haven't told. But with the area that's left, more than likely it's going to be the big custom lots, because it's either that or they're going to have wasted space.
I wanted to, again, make sure I understood this correctly and give you a chance to maybe clear up some confusion. A lot of the public comments that we had brought attention things that I'm not sure if they're accurate. And so for myself, when I hear something or see something or read something, my first go-to is to call you or Kathy at the city and get the real answer. The 79 units that are under the zoning for vacation rentals were already approved several years ago. Is that correct?
I think it was 2018. They brought up just like a plat you're looking at now, but the bottom half had 10 full-size lots. They were going to put bigger homes, detached, 5 or 6 bedroom, completely sprinkled. They were going to have like 4-car garages in them with a bunch of parking space. Each one was going to be like its own vacation rental resort, the home itself. They were going to have 10 of those. Well, they've changed their mind, and that's where some of the number went up, because they're not having those 10 monster homes, is what they had in there. And you can go out and see one out at Stookie Farms. You know the one I'm talking about. It's in your neighborhood. If you go out to Stookie Farms by their farmhouse, they have one built. I think they have 10 of them slated in Stookie Farms, and they're big homes. I mean, they're probably 3,500 to 5,000 square feet in size. They've got 4-car garage built, into them. They've, and they're completely sprinkled, because if you don't have them sprinkled, you're limited to 10 persons in a transient use, is what it's called. So they have to be sprinkled, but that was an option. I think they were going to do it, but times change. They don't want to put 10 of those in, so they're coming back, and the numbers went up. Still in the same acreage, but yeah, the numbers went up. But that just means they're taking numbers out of going into 7A, because again, it's 151 for the whole area.
So the 79 that were approved a couple of years ago or that plat that they brought in has expired and no longer applies. It's off the table.
Right. What happens if, like this plat, let's just take it for example, and it gets approved, or you send it forward, the city council looks at it, gives it a stamp of approval. The clock starts ticking on every preliminary plat. You have to come back and file for a final plat within 12 months. So you can work on your construction drawings and get all that going, get the thing kind of built out, but then you have 12 months to then go record a final plat. So I try to help developers understand it. If you play right, you should never expire. You have plenty of time. But a preliminary plat has 12 months. You have to do something, file for a final plat within a 12-month period, or get an extension. We do allow for, they can get they can get a 6-month one just from staff. I'll look at it. Now, if they've been totally dead on it and not done anything for no reason, just because they were being lazy, I pretty much won't give that. I'll say, you can go ask the council and the commission for that one, because I think that you've just didn't do anything. Now, if they come back and say, you know what, my finance company over here, I was just close to doing this and all of a sudden it fell apart. Now I'm with something else, or one of my partners left, or, you have some things that get out of their control. I'll give them that 6 months myself. But if they want more, another 6 months, they can only get 12 total. Then they have to go between the planning commission and the city council to get up to a year extension on a preliminary plat and a final plat. I know we're doing a lot of educating, but I think that helps here.
So a fresh way for me to look at this is an area that is zoned nightly rentals, fresh. Forget about 79. They want to put 99 here now. Forget about 79. It didn't exist. This is just for me. I have to acknowledge that it's zoned for nightly rentals. I have to decide as a commissioner, if I think it's good to recommend city council or not, having 99 there. Is that a fair way to say it?
Absolutely. If you're not comfortable with 99, talk it out with your applicant. You know, or if it meets, again, they count all the parking, they got big amenity area. Again, it's not all, I'm going to head back and bring that up, but those are the things as a commission, once you get your public input and you guys feel that you want to move on. Now, it can go that way. Now, the applicants ask for 99. You could make a recommendation to do 8. I'm just going to pull a number out, say 83. Or you keep it at 99, whatever. If it's 83, then the council is going to get it. The application is still for 99, but your recommendation says 83. Then they can then take both those and say, okay, here's what they want to do. They'll have 5 people to sit there and chew that over and go through it and then come up with whatever the final plat gets vested.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Drew while he's here? Or otherwise, I'll give him some time to go back to the exhibits where he can control those.
You guys are missing all my fancy drawing.
So Drew, Commissioner Anderson, so question, I guess a couple questions, but so the preliminary plat that was approved, I think it was May of 2018, where they had the 76 units, and they were all townhomes plus 10 of the big, huge houses.
Standalone lots.
Yeah, standalone lots. And so those houses, essentially, they were designed to fit like 3 families worth as nightly rentals, roughly, right?
Probably could have if you know, because they could fit 30 people in those, especially if you take the one at Stookie Farms, easily put, you know, like a little mini family reunion.
Right.
That's what they're designed for.
So my question is then is if we're adding, say, if we're adding 26 units, but now these units are designed for one family at a time to vacation in, as opposed to 3 families, then is I guess the total load of people in this area is about the same, correct?
If you want to look
In
at
theory,
that's actually a good theory, because if I could fit 3 into 1 and they're doing a triplex of 3 small, you know, smaller ones now, in theory, it would have been about the same use of people. Now, again,
right? Yeah, and that's all
units,
going to just
but
people.
the volume of use would have been probably fairly close to, you know, I'm not going to say everyone's going to max out at 3, but
Right.
if possibly on President's Day weekend, anywhere down here, every vacation rental and every hotel is booked, you know, on President's Day weekend. We just went through that.
So my second question is that so they have 151 units that are approved for all of area 7, right? And 7B, is that 7B is where the nightly rentals are approved? Setla is not going to give them approval in 7A, just 7B, correct?
Yeah, that was taken off. You're new that they're in the process of going through a general plan amendment that council will vote on next week. But the original, what Cole West wanted to do is turn all of 7 in. There was a lot of backlash on it, and rightly so. You know, that would have been a big area for that. With that, they came back and basically pulled that off their thing. Now 7B is still there, you know, but they wanted to make all 7A that got taken off and was not part of what actually ended up going to the planning commission and then to the city council last week.
So 7A and B together can have 151 units total, and 7B is the only place that nightly rentals are allowed.
Yes.
And as far as this preliminary plat, they're essentially they've redesigned the layout, and we're not addressing nightly rentals. We're not addressing any. We're just addressing the revised layout, correct?
Yep, and that's where you're set. When you got your comments, the 79 was almost 3 years ago, that approval,
Right.
but it was a different
layout.
design. They had some twin homes along the one side, and then they had, you know, it was a lot different kind of layout. I mean, the roads were still pretty much identical,
Right.
but how they did the units has changed. So it went from 79, you know, it was basically 69 townhome type setups with 10
Right.
big parcels that were 15,000 square feet. I think most of them are bigger.
And by doing this, by going to 99 units here, essentially that means that they're going to have more open space in 7A, right? It's going to be lower density in 7A because now they've taken out units, 26 units out of 7A and put them into 7B.
That's in essence what happened. They took what that previous approval folks were talking about, which was 79. That would have left them, that would have been 72
Right.
lots up there because of the 79 here. But now they're going to 99, which leaves 52 in 7.
That was my question.
That good? Okay. Anybody else before I go jump on and get your screen back where we need it? I'm glad the sound's working out good. That was weird.
Will you let us know when you get back?
I will. I'll say I'm here, and then you can.
Yeah, but when he gets back. Yeah. We'll make sure we get all the questions asked by commissioners prior to opening it up for the public.
Drew, this is Matt. I understand that there were some fire questions that you had. I apologize that I didn't come through earlier.
Matt, this is Commissioner Hanson. What item are you representing? What's your last name?
He's the fire chief. Sorry, Commissioner.
Sorry about that. Chief, I've never met you.
Sorry.
Yep. It's a pro and a con. I don't know anybody, and I need to know a lot, but I like to not know anybody. So Matt, I'll meet you one of these days.
One of these days when we get back to all the way together, right?
There you go.
Now, Matt, you understood. They were just asking about that the emergency access down here, like what we did up in the views, and widened out the cart path to an access for you and an ambulance.
Yeah, so they, that was an exception that was made for something that was already there, some things on some old pieces. And ultimately, the commission and the council have those decisions to make. The fire code requires a secondary access anytime you go over 30 units. And then, of course, with the way that street goes in and just ends back there, that presents another problem because, of course, it's too long. It would require a formal turnaround at the top. I'm sure that part's easy. We're not really too hip on cart paths. It's not just to get things in, but it's also to get people out of course. So the more that we, the more you push that, the more you just go contrary to the code. But we would need to see exactly what they're proposing and what kind of weight and, distance. So what they have there doesn't really give you a second way out. It's all still on the same main road.
Hey, Drew, Commissioner Anderson again.
Yes.
So another question. In all the comments that we read, one of the things that kept coming up over and over again was people said they were concerned about the applicant asking for 35-foot, I guess a 35-foot variance as opposed to the 25-foot, which is required for residential. And I don't see anything here in this application of theirs that mentions anything about a 35-foot height.
Well, you probably won't, just for, and again, I appreciate, it's your first meeting and that's good. And you'll pick up a lot. But we generally don't, on a preliminary plat, I don't go and, worry about, everybody knows what the height limits are in the city. This particular one, I'm glad maybe somebody brought it out because, maybe just reminded the applicant, the developer that, hey, that when this area was done, the council did put a 25-foot limit, on their homes. Even though the zoning and the PCD, as we pointed out in the previous PCD amendment, was at 35. But this area, along with the town center and the 8th, did have a maximum of 25 feet that the council did grant, the people that did show up. So they do have a limit. Again, we generally don't put that on preliminary plats, but if you guys feel like you need to do it, I throw a condition on. I'm fine with that because this zoning, this 7B's zoning approval was based upon 25-foot height limit. And they have not asked for 35. I have not heard that on my side. So I'm just telling that out. I think the applicants online, I hope they know they're still limited to that. They were in the meeting that the councilman did that, back in 2016.
I'd like to not hear from the applicant now. I'll call and hear from the applicant in a little bit.
Okay.
Once we've had a chance to have public comment, there are probably some other things that we'd like to ask the applicant. So not at this time. Commissioners, do you have any other questions for Drew? Okay, at this time, I didn't write this not to read it more than once, so let me do this again. So when I'm absolutely looking forward to hearing the public comment tonight. Now that you're here and you're getting ready to share your comments and thoughts with us, I want you to think about your comments with what I'm going to read again. As we begin our public comment, I ask each of you to please keep your comments relevant, clear, and not repetitive to the agenda item that you're commenting on. Our role as commissioners is to use your comments and concerns in our consideration or recommendation to the City Council for approval or denial. The public comment section is not intended to be a debate or a back and forth between individuals. I remember one of my first meetings that we had, a lady wanted to debate with us where all the water was coming from. And she kind of started getting into it. I was on my heels, and it's just not what it's designed to do. We absolutely want to hear from you. We're happy to hear what you have to say and respect everybody's time. If you can, please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And I'll also mention that in the comments that we received, many of the things that you want to say tonight, we saw. That doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. But if you tell us that you're upset about the trash and the traffic and the noise and all that, we've heard that. So if you want to use your 3 minutes for something else, that would probably behoove you. But I'm more than happy, and I think the rest of us are willing and able to listen to everything you have to say. But just please be respectful of what we're trying to do. We're not here to turn you away. We are here to listen to you. I already have formulated in my mind, just from talking with staff and the meetings that we've had previously, of my desires to try to not fix, but try to come to a solution that works for everybody. And I don't know what that is. So I need your help, and obviously you're going to need ours. And so we're going to try to do this together. So with that being said, I'll open up the public comment. When you come up, please speak clearly and obviously closely. We've learned tonight it's a microphone, and please state your name. Drew, do they also need to state their address, or do they just need to state their name?
Sorry, I went and muted myself. keep quiet, but just their name will be fine.
If you wouldn't mind, please stating your name.
But they don't have to put their address.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Nancy Schriever, and I've been a resident of Coral Canyon for 8 years. I also serve as chairman of the Coral Canyon Community Committee. I'm here tonight in proxy for Jim Burris, who has 35 years of experience in environmental assessment work and permitting for energy projects throughout the United States. So he has a lot of experience on the environmental side and permitting. So he knows what he's talking about. He and his wife are Coral Canyon residents. So here's the letter. As Coral Canyon homeowners, we have observed construction of Coal West new developments, reviewed their planned community development amendment requests, and participated in various public meetings. We are concerned about Coal West's aggressive approach to future development in Coral Canyon, restricting homeowner input and PCD amendment revisions. The island development approved in 2018 by the Planning Commission and City Council was never sent out to Coral Canyon residents for comment, nor were any public meetings held. In a January meeting, Mr. Drake Howell of Coal West indicated to homeowners they had approval to build 99 townhouses with nightly rental in Area 7, the island. The larger number of 35-foot high, medium-high density units is not what was approved by the city or compatible with adjacent Coral Canyon PCD residential home designs, CCNRs, or HOA rental ordinances. Sensitive wildlife habitat, seasonally flooded areas, FEMA identified floodplain, and potential jurisdictional wetlands occur within the proposed development area. Impacts of recent flood events for the past 3 to 6 years are still visible in Area 7 and on the golf course. Washington City planning staff has recommended approval of a preliminary plat map submitted by Coal West. This recommendation is based upon two findings. Number one, meeting designation land use in 2017 Washington City General Plan, and number two, conformance with zoning and subdivision ordinances. Both are not true, as development is in direct conflict with general plan land use goals and objectives. Table 2-2 land use map shows the entire Area 7 as low-density residential single family. The Coral Canyon PCD 2005 master plan and HOA ordinances do not allow nightly rentals with roof heights greater than 25 feet or medium high density homes. There appear to be major discrepancies in what Coal West states they have approval for and what was actually approved by the Planning Commission of 79 25-foot high units. Planning Commission staff's findings and conditions cannot be supported due to conflicts with local planning documents and Utah Fire Access Road Code. The island development proposed by Coal West is not in the best interest of Coral Canyon or Washington City residents, will result in significant negative impacts, including increased costs, diminished property values, as well as the loss of view sheds and sensitive environmental areas. Coral Canyon Golf Course and their clients will also suffer. If the Planning Commission doesn't require Coal West to comply with existing zoning and planning documents and is allowed to proceed with the island development, it could be viewed as negligence. Assessment of environmental impacts and determination of required permits should be required to prevent violating current state and federal environmental regulations or local ordinances. We request the Planning Commission deny staff's recommendation to approve a preliminary plat submitted by Coal West for the island and table any future reviews or approvals on the development from Coal West. Thank you.
Nancy, thank you. Can you make sure that that letter gets submitted as well? Can you talk to I didn't write down the person that wrote it. If it wasn't already submitted, could you have them submit it to the city so it can go on record for the city council? Yeah, because they do read all the comments that come in. That's what I thought. I just want to make sure it was one of them for sure. That was about 17 minutes, Nancy. Great job. I'm just kidding. It wasn't 17. No, you did fine. I'm sure. Yeah, is there anybody else that would like to make a comment? By the way, just by show of hands, how many people plan on making a comment this evening? Okay, so about 10, we'll call it. Okay.
My name is Raymond Olson. I live in Coral Canyon. I'll be brief. I want to remind the commissioners who how all of this nightly rental started. It started as a vacation rental by owner, which implies the fact that the owner is actually there in the vacation rental, and has suddenly now become bigger than Marriott and Hilton combined, two corporations in America who are running roughshod over communities like ours. They're tearing at the very fabric of our communities. I could go on about all of the things that you've heard tonight or that you've mentioned tonight that have come, but I want to say that it's similar to living next to Splash Mountain, except that you don't have security, you don't have the people cleaning up around the place, and you don't have parking. And so with all respect to staff's recommendation, this private citizen recommends that you deny any further nightly rental development. The studies are done that demonstrate, one of them done by Airbnb themselves, that says that 2 to 4% of the people who come and stay in the nightly rentals would not have made those trips had they not had nightly rentals available. Don't be fooled by people claiming that this is an economic boon to your community. It's not. 96% of those people, at least, would be here anyway, spending their money in our valley, in our restaurants, doing all the same things, but they would just be staying at hotels.
Ray, I saw that in a comment as well. Did you also submit a letter or a comment?
I did.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. 2 for 2. Yeah, come on, go ahead.
Let's see if I can get this up so I don't have to bend over. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me or not. Are you?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, my name is Gordon Burns. I've been a resident of Coral Canyon since 2019. I'm a retired professional engineer in the state of Utah, and I served in a community council in unincorporated Salt Lake County back in the late 80s. And part of the reason why I'm here tonight is because I was at home shoveling up in Salt Lake, shoveling snow over the weekend. I got a call from a resident that said, hey, is there any way you could come down and put together a letter and come present? And so I'm thinking, what on earth am I going to do? I was frustrated over the fact that the developers of Coral Canyon have not kept the TCD up to date. So what I'm going to do tonight is tell you that you really need to have CoWest update the TCD because there's a lot of errors, a lot of confusion and frustration. I'd like to try to help explain why you have 100 letters. I'd like to try to explain why CoWest is frustrated. I'd like to try to explain why you're frustrated and why others are frustrated. And I believe a big part of it is the fact that CoWest does not have a current TCD update. And so for me to, so what I'm going to do is use one simple little example to be able to go through it. One thing that you have to emphasize before I get into this example is Drew Ellerman in your city is excellent at updating the master plan, excellent at keeping your zoning map updated, and it keeps your meetings going really smooth. As I've sat here and listened, when there's a question, Drew can pull up his map and he can go to a layer and he can show you exactly what has been approved. I'm going to talk about how even in last meeting that we had for Area 9 is that CoWest didn't even have their PCD that they're showing, they overlaid what they're changing their PCD to, updated for Area 7. Didn't show A and B. Drew had to go in there and off of memory, and he did a really good memory. He went in and circled what he thought was 7B and is 5 acres because that's what's in their PCD. But yet they're asking for 20-something acres. So I'd like to just go through and give you a little bit of an example of that.
Gordon, you're stressing me out. Looks like you have a book right there.
I do, and I have notes and things I'm going to use certainly to try to help tie it down. And as soon as you want me to leave, just raise your hand.
No, I absolutely want to hear it, but at the same time, I'm like, holy cow. I don't even drink Diet Coke, and my wife said, take this because you're going to need it to stay awake. It's going to last till 10 o'clock again. Like,
all right. If you want me to shut this, raise your hand.
I want you to give me your best points. I don't want to cut you off and say you can't speak, but I definitely want to hear your best points because I appreciate it. I think we all do.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is just point out how Suncor kept track and updated the TCD. What they did while they were doing it is they would take, and when there would be an amendment, they would take the amendment from Washington City, and they would insert it into their PCD, which is 380 pages long, big, and they would input it into the appropriate place, and they would highlight and say this map is being replaced with this map. And so they had it really set up real well, and so you could follow it. CoWest could do something like that. CoWest could do anything they want, but I think they need to at least keep the drawings updated. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take one example of where errors are propagated and walk you through that one example. As you read a lot of meeting minutes and everything, there's a whole bunch of people that say you have a bunch of different things that they feel are errors. And I'm just going to take one of them. I'm not going to talk about any of the others. You've already heard those. Okay, so the one I'm going to talk about is Area 7, commercial area, grew from 5 acres to 23.6 acres of multifamily recreational nightly rentals. Oh, there's one thing I forgot that I need to, before I give the example, is I try to get the zoning maps, master plans, PCDs before I buy into an area. And so, anyways, last year, I was trying to find out what on earth is the correct PCD to be using. And so I met with Drew Ellerman, Tim Fitch and I did. We met there, and I went in thinking that what he's going to tell me is it's going to either be the amended land use master plan, dated 2007, or the Washington City General Plan, dated 2017, or the Washington City zoning map, dated July 2nd, 2008. I was totally surprised. twice. What Drew said is no, none of those Washington City acknowledges for Coral Canyon. The only thing that is authorized for Coral Canyon is a land use master plan amended 10/6/2005, along with revised zoning comparison and the associated land use table. And so I left the meeting last year thinking I had the controlling document in my hand. He gave it to me. And so then a month ago, they said Area 7 was zoned for multifamily recreational or nightly rentals. I pull out my map that Drew gave me. No, there doesn't. There's not a single spot on there that shows multifamily recreational. It shows 5 acres of commercial, along with residential, a church, and I can't remember what the other was, but anyway, it didn't have any. So I told my neighbors, oh, you don't have to worry. That's not approved, even though COEST is saying it. Well, for me to find out that it was approved, it took me 17 meeting minutes. And you guys see the meeting minutes. You know what it's like. Out of those meeting minutes, I had to sort out what was for this Coral Canyon. I got 6 of them from Kathy, gave me some recommendations to look at 6 of those meeting minutes. Lori Saunders gave me recommendations to look at some additional minutes. And then Steve Whitehead from COEST gave me some additional recommendations for other meeting minutes. And so anyway, it took me that many, and I probably don't even have, there's probably things I'm going to say tonight that somebody can go and say, oh no, there's other meeting minutes that can show me that what I'm saying is wrong. I just don't know about it. I did do it. Okay, so now my example.
All right, Gordon, let's hear it. I'll give you 2 minutes. How about 1 minute? Can you hit me with 1 minute?
I'll give you 1 minute.
All
Okay.
right.
The example is that the Area 7 commercial grew from 5 acres to 23.6 acres of multifamily recreational nightly rentals. This happened from 2007 to now by trying to implement the approval to convert the commercial area nightly rentals. There are several other errors pointed out in the meeting tonight. I already said that, okay. Every PCD that's provided to me from 2009 to last weekend from Suncor, Sitla, COEST, and Washington City does not have any land use for multifamily recreational nightly rentals in Area 7. However, all of the PCDs have 5 acres of commercial area. Okay, so meeting minutes from 2007 show that an approval was given to convert the commercial 5 acres to nightly rentals. Meeting minutes from 2016 show approval was given for 18.1 acres of nightly rentals in Area 7. 13.1 more acres than approved in 2007. Meeting minutes from 2018 approval was given for 23.6 acres of nightly rentals. This is a major increase of 5 acres commercial in 2007 to 23.6 acres for nightly rentals in 2018. It's important to note that nothing was ever mentioned about the increase in any of the minutes. I believe these errors happened due to not having an updated PCD that is easy to read to help make important decisions.
All right, Gordon, I got to cut you off, my friend.
Okay.
What did you also submit that? Because that sounds very familiar. There was somebody that made a comment about a PCD that COEST has. It's over 300 pages and they had an overlay.
I submit that.
Okay.
I'm just here to try to help point out that we really need to not approve anything in Coral Canyon until COEST updates their PCD to eliminate these types of errors and to also make sure that we have the correct facts to make the correct decisions. I probably won't like it when it's updated because there's so many minutes out there. I don't have a clue what type of bombs are out there. But we need to bring them to the surface now and do it rather than do it piecemeal. Thank you. Have a good
Thank you.
night.
Appreciate it.
It'll be very brief.
That's what Gordon said.
I'm Elon Shannon. I live in Coral Canyon. And you've covered a number of my points. But here's the deal. That was an example of why there's so much confusion going on. So whether it's intentional or not, there's no trust between the residents and COEST. And I can go through a list of things, which I won't. But the reason you're getting inputs now, feedback now, is because there's a number of us residents who took the initiative to finally communicate with other residents, let them know what's going on. We monitor every planning commission meeting, every council meeting, all the minutes, everything else. Now, 2016, I looked at those minutes, both council meetings minutes as well as the commission minutes. Had we known about what was being proposed, we would have been here. You would have gotten feedback. But in absence of us knowing, there was nobody here to provide public input. And so they talk about taking commercial and converting it to vacation homes. Another option that could have been considered that I think a lot of us might have proposed is to have affordable housing. Everybody talks about affordable housing. I looked at the Washington City plan. It's all about affordable housing. I didn't see anything there about developing vacation homes and Washington City becoming a spring break destination. We've got tons of vacation homes all over the place, as you well know. And most of them aren't even occupied. We have no idea what the impact's going to be in terms of congestion, traffic, drug and alcohol abuse, all kinds of things like that. At the very least, we can't undo the zoning, which I think we should. We should consider affordable housing, because based on the Washington City plan, we're going to 80,000 people in what, another 10, 15 years, whatever the number is. We need affordable housing. I know my house has gone up sky high. And that's an area that could be utilized for affordable housing. It supports the community. It's people who care about the community. At the very least, I think we ought to put a moratorium on any more vacation homes or overnight stays in the area. And let's evaluate what's going on with all of the stuff that's unoccupied right now, which we haven't even seen the impact of. And before anybody says that we've studied all of that, I don't believe it. And a good example is what happened to Telegraph Road when we lost half of it because of landslide. We can't predict everything in the future. And so we ought to take it a little slower and put it on hold. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, who's next? Yeah, please.
Excuse me. My name is Mark Mannion. My wife and I purchased a home in Coral Canyon in 2005. There are many issues related to Coal West. Coal West zone changes since last December and before. Proper notice to Coral Canyon homeowners is one big issue. One huge issue. City code requires written notices for zone changes to homeowners. There's never been any written notice mailed to homeowners since Coal West has been involved in Coral Canyon. Mr. Howe, Coral Canyon has used the excuse of C-19 to hold hardly, hastily held Zoom meetings with very limited number of homeowners with access to the Zoom. Emails are not constituted or considered a legal notice. A board member of the Coral Canyon HOA has been denied mailing lists, denied email lists of 1,100 homeowners. Coal West has all the addresses, all the emails of all the homeowners in Coral Canyon and emits homeowners from their proposed zone changes to avoid homeowners' conflicts and issues. Now to Area 7. Area 7 is one of the very few areas left in Coral Canyon. It is home of birds of prey, lakes, several springs, areas of wetlands and riparian, not to mention the golf course. In any of Coal West zone changes, they have not hinted, suggested, mentioned of protecting these environmental sensitive issues that are protected by federal and state laws. Nightly rentals are not part of the master plan of Coral Canyon in 2005. To our community, they will reduce our property taxes, property values. They will bring drugs, vandalism, garbage, noise, and a host of traffic issues to Coral Canyon. They're proposed by Coal West requesting HOA funds, which he's president of the organization, for use those improvements in Area 7. I believe Coral Canyon needs to notify the members of the Coral Canyon HOA members that he plans to use some of those funds to help improve the area in C7 and 7B. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark.
Great.
Hey, Drew, this is Commissioner Hanson. We're being handed some exhibits. I just wanted to ask, for lack of a better term, is that okay? I remember when we first had a meeting a couple of years ago when I was first here, something came up about this. Is that okay if we receive these and look at them and discuss them?
That's kind of up. I mean, we normally, under normal circumstances, we used to let people hand you stuff, but I will just, and again, it's nothing against, I saw the folks and love them to pieces, but I say, just remember your COVID stuff, not supposed to be taken. But that's going to be up to you on that, just because of the pandemic stuff. But other than that, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
You're getting information that way. But that would be it. So.
Okay. 6 feet away. If any of us get COVID. All right, please state your name and let's hear your best shot at 3 minutes.
Lori Saunders, Coral Canyon Mesa. Those pictures basically, although Cole West, oh, sorry. It's like karaoke all over. Although Cole West's plan up there looks all nice and tidy, I just wanted you guys to get a visual of what the area actually looks like and what it's going to affect. The first two top pictures are of the 14th fairway backyards of people's homes, and they're going to be in direct line of the multiplex units. That is right from their backyard. The lower one, third one on the first page, is a picture from the backyard of the Beehive homes. That's the assisted living, where the elderly live. So it's going to be in direct line with them as well. So they're going to have the noise issues and all the fun that comes with the party houses. I did talk to multiple residents of the Beehive homes because, they're not always able to get around, and 100% of them were against it. The second page is a view of the multiplexes that are being built down in CN Hills. Unfortunately, they have all earned areas down there. They are called the Pen now, because the Pen at CN Hills, because people think it looks like a penitentiary.
I saw that in a comment too. Is that your comment submitted?
No.
Oh, somebody else called it.
It could have been one of my neighbors, because we all live up there. So, and they also hear where they live. They also hear the noise issues from down there. We don't, because we're interior. The last picture on the bottom page of page 2 is a view of Coral Canyon in the actual area where it's proposed for these units. And you can see that it's single floor. It's very nice looking. It doesn't look anything like what these houses are more than likely going to look like. That's on the third page, which is the 8th and Town Center. And the only reason why I showed you those pictures of all the trash is because that was as of yesterday. Their trash only gets picked up once a week from Thursday to Thursday. So you have renters coming in on the weekend, filling up the trash cans, leaving on the Sunday, and the wind comes, the heat comes, the smell comes, and the trash is blown everywhere. And it just stays. So that's for both areas. And then, how much time have I got?
4 seconds.
Okay.
Lori, what do you have? I'll give you a little bit of time, Lori, if there's something else you'd like to add that has not been talked about.
When Coral Canyon, okay. So every year we have a celebration meeting at our HOA. The mayor comes, police chief comes, the current developer and the planning, city planner comes. And every year, our mayor tells the story and the history of Coral Canyon and how it was developed and what a great idea Coral Canyon was. Well, when we bought our home, we bought into that great idea. And so did 1,200 other homeowners. And in previous meetings, when this development came up in 2018, it was originally proposed as Palm Island. Well, apparently the investors didn't like that name, and it was a very important issue, and they wanted it renamed the Islands of Coral Canyon. And my point is, when it comes right down to it, the homeowners and the city, the citizens of Washington City are your investors, not out of town people and not people up in the legislature that make the rules. And just because this was approved 5 years ago, this zone change, you're not mandated to do it. And I've got better ideas for that area. You could mirror the 14th Fairway homes. That's where our friend from Cole West used to live. And he says it was a great place as a starter home. So why not make that area the same thing?
Excellent. That sounds also like another comment that we read very close. So your neighbors are echoing what you're saying.
Commissioner Hanson, I did not get the name of that person.
Her name is Lori Saunders.
Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Dick Saunders, her second in command. I wrote in a letter, but I'm not going to copy that letter. I'm going to talk about something else. I'm going to talk about the fact that all of what we're talking about is this PCD, Planned Community Development. What a coincidence, we're in front of the Planning Commission. 20 plus years ago, this plan came together. I wasn't here. Most of us weren't here. But most of us, after the plan was implemented, and it was a combination, I think, between the city, the developer, and SITLA, and it was a great plan. We bought into the plan. As history has gone on, Gordon quite amply described the confusion as time moved forward, plans get modified, they get changed. I don't know when the first of the nightly rentals came up in the city of Washington, but I think one of the first PCDs was Coral Canyon. And the PCD involves almost 2 square miles, over 1,600 acres. So I think it's the largest PCD. It is, as Lori had mentioned, we've heard many city officials say it's supposedly the jewel of Washington City. We like to think it is. But if that's the case, how did we get so far off what the original intent of the PCD was? Gordon also mentioned, I think it's a 360-page document. I never read it. I mean, we read certain highlights of it. When we were sold our homes, we were pointed out the highlights like that the design review committee said it was going to be single-family homes. The design review committee can change that, obviously. Unfortunately for us in our current situation, as you've heard, the design review committee is the applicant. So we can't really fight it yet. The plan, most of us agree, was great. 5 years ago, we had a submission by our contractor. At that time, wasn't Cole West, but it was one of the previous companies that submitted that change. Jack Fisher. I think they went, I don't know whether they went out of business. They're basically Cole West's successor. That meeting wasn't attended by homeowners. One of the notes in the meeting at the city council was, one of the councilmen said, it's very unusual that there's not many residents here. I think there was 3 residents that attended that meeting 5 years ago because nobody was notified. The vote 5 years ago to allow all these areas, including area 7 that we're talking about tonight, was split 3-2. I don't know who voted favorably and who voted unfavorably, but it is unfortunate that it got to that point. It's unfortunate that the planning commission at the time didn't see that it wasn't really compliant to what the original plan of Coral Canyon was. But looking in hindsight, you've seen pictures of what the 8th and what town center looked like. They're attractive buildings someplace. They just don't match what Coral Canyon is. Those of you familiar with the area may have noticed the original nightly rental units, which is Coral Ridge. Coral Ridge basically matches the architecture and design of the rest of the community. So now you've got non-compliant buildings. Suddenly they say, well, we want to have private streets. Why do you want private streets? Could it be because private streets allow them to have less distance between units? Is it because maybe they don't need to put in curbs or sidewalks? I presume it's because they can put in more units onto the assigned acreage. It's going to look like those at Town Center at the 8th. You don't need more of those problems. I think you've got overwhelming response because there's a lot of people that currently live in the neighborhood that are not in favor. You guys have an awesome responsibility of either passing this on or not passing it on. You can pass it on with amendments, suggestions. But what I would say is, gee whiz, look at the response you're getting. Please consider thoughtfully. And if you can find a way, do not pass it on to the council. I don't think this plan is worth saying that it complies with what the zoning is. The zoning is questionable that it should have ever been obtained in the first place.
All right, Dick, thanks for your comments. Appreciate it. Any other public comments? Anybody here would like to say anything? Okay, at this time, I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Commissioner Musso. I make a motion that we close the public comments for item number 7C, the island at Coral Canyon.
Commissioner Steele, I second that.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed on item 7C. At this time, commissioners, I invite your comments or discussion points between us, or certainly questions for staff, that maybe something that somebody said in the public comments triggered something you'd like to know from staff or the applicant. But for at this point, just from the staff, is there anything that we'd like to clarify with Drew? How many are there? 14? And they came in after the ones that we had received? I'd like to hear them actually, Eldon, if that's okay. If you wouldn't mind. We voted to close the public hearing. Drew, do we need to vote to open that back up so we can hear these comments that were submitted?
I probably, you probably get away with not, but I feel more comfortable if you do, but just don't take any other comments. You're just going to open them up to hear those is what your motion needs to be.
Okay, at this time, we're going to open up the public hearing only to hear the comments to be read by staff member who received emails after the cutoff date. So we didn't receive these, so these will be new to us.
So I make a
So
motion.
motion to open it?
Yeah, I make a motion that we open the public comments to these additional comments that we weren't privy to.
Second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second to open public comments. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, comment is open. Eldon, go ahead, thanks.
This is from Doug and Cheryl. We live in Coral Canyon. We feel like a broken record.
Can you drop your mask? Thank you.
This is from Doug and Cheryl. They live in Coral Canyon. It states, we feel like a broken record, but we feel the need to respond again to Coal West's proposal. We have owned a home in Coral Canyon since June 2015. We absolutely did not receive notification of any kind that Coal West was seeking to build nightly rentals on the island in Coral Canyon. We know the HOA has our email because we have received personal emails from them from time to time. One of the reasons we purchased our home in Coral Canyon was because nightly rentals are not allowed under HOA rules regulations. We also wanted a family neighborhood and not a resort atmosphere. We live several blocks away from the city center nightly rentals, and it is a nightmare with youth illegally riding four-wheelers in the gully behind our house, trash overflowing, parking of trucks, trailers, off-road machines, etc. We feel Coal West should have to go through the proper channels to get the island approved for nightly rentals, since no resident was notified of this intent when it was brought to the committee originally. How can they change our HOA rules, regulations without our input? We do not want nightly rentals in our family neighborhood. Gary Mitchell from Coral Canyon states, I am opposing to Coal West turning the island area of Coral Canyon into daily rental resort, which is in no way conform to the standards that our HOA enforces to the residential area. This is residential area, not a resort. It might be time to leave. Jackie Cooley of Coral Canyon states, Coral Canyon is at it again. Rather than listening to the residents that purchased their homes from them with the understanding there would only be single dwellings, and nowhere was there an indication of building on the island inside of the golf course. This company has lied to us and gone before our backs to you, the commission, asking for zone changes. They are then approved and we know nothing about them. The commission needs to take many factors into consideration, which include Coal West is only out to see how much money they can make and not care about Coral Canyon concerns. The adding of these addition nightly rental increases the probability of increased criminal activity, which had already increased with the new apartments on Telegraph. Getting onto Telegraph Road is hazardous with the increased traffic. Our parks are getting trashed and not being properly taken care of. The trails surrounding Coral Canyon are also being trashed and people are not cleaning up after their dogs. And I believe the majority of this is as a result of renters. I sincerely believe it would be in the best interest of Washington City if the proposed zone change be denied. Robert and Don Bird of Coral Canyon state, we bought our house in Coral Canyon in 2016. We enjoyed our quiet neighborhood. We do not want any more nightly vacation rentals in our community. We have a lot of nightly rentals already in our area. We are worried about traffic, crime, drop in home values, and additional noise in our nice, quiet neighborhood. We love it here and do not want to change the look or feel of our great community. Please, no more nightly rentals. Gordon Burns of Coral Canyon states, Washington's. Thank you. Brian Trapp of Coral Canyon states, I am a resident of Coral Canyon. When I purchased my home, I was informed that all of Coral Canyon was going to be single family homes. That is what I wanted and expected to be here. We have gone through 3 developers here, Henry Walker Homes, which became Jack Fisher Homes, which became Coal West. Same owner, same people, different name. It was only a few weeks ago that Coal West went to the Planning Commission and asked for the overnight rentals in Area 7. The Planning Commission voted not to allow them. Coal West is back asking for the very same thing yet again. They must believe that they can just continue to beat at you until you submit. Coal West in the last Planning Commission meeting stated that homes have a height restriction of 35 feet. That is not accurate at all. The 35-foot height restriction is for commercial buildings, while residents are restricted to 25 feet. You will not find a home here higher than that. Coal West is asking for many 4plexes, 3plexes, duplexes, and all of them 2-story and higher than 25 feet. The people on the HOA that get to approve building design are Coal West. Really? Yes, it's true. One of the commissioners asked Drake Howell why he was on the HOA board. The truth is, according to the CCNR's Article 7, Section 7.2 states that all officers shall be appointed by member B. Member B is Sitla. I am asking you to please deny this change. Glenn.
Do you guys feel the same? Just so you know, I think that we have received these because almost every single one, I recognize the wording and some of the comments that were made. Do you guys feel the same way, or would you like him to keep going? Yeah. I think we're good. I mean, I as commissioners as a whole, I think that we're good. Okay. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. At this time, I'd look for a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Commissioner Musso again. I propose we close the public hearing on item 7C, the island at Coral Canyon.
I second that. I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I kind of forgot where we were now before that. At this point, I think as commissioners to discuss anything with staff or amongst ourselves, concerns or questions that we have. I only have a couple that I'd like to open up to you guys.
I was out there yesterday or day before yesterday, and I did notice a whole bunch of cattails. You know, I'm not the great big environmentalist, but I know that cattails present a problem. And typically, it involves the Corps of Engineers, as far as I know. I don't know if there's been any environmental. I mean, you start talking environmental impact studies, and that's a whole nother can of worms. But Drew, do you know if there's been environmental impact stuff done out there around the island? Hello, Drew.
Sorry, the mute was there. Originally, there was an environmental done as part of any PCD does that. Now it's 23 years old, but you know, someone brought up about floodplain, and I just wanted you to see it. This is the floodplain in the area. Some gentleman made it sound like where these are all going. I was kind of confused. I'm just going to kind of roughly give you, you know.
Can you kind of sketch on there where, okay, there you go.
Yeah, I'm just. Now, again, this is your area that's in question. And you can all see the floodplain line, right? It's that hashed red and blue. Correct?
Right.
Okay, that's the only flood, any question of any flood is right there, floodplain area. Floodway or floodplain.
Okay, so that's what's on their proposed.
Yeah, you see
that's the blue then, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this up as an aerial, just so you see, you know, this is
right, and that really helps.
Here's This is the only flood area here. Now, I will let you know, as with any subdivision, when they come in, there always has to be a geotechnical report, not a 23-year-old one, but one done for each subdivision. And I'll let Brandon, if he wants to pop in, but every one of them have to do, there's a minimum standard that the Public Works makes them do on a geotechnical review of a particular subdivision. I don't know, Brandon, you want to jump in and tell how extensive that is or not? But I just wanted to point it out.
That's correct, Drew. Each one has to stand on its own. We have received a new one from their geotech. We're working through the process with them at this time to make sure that it's up to date and it's for site specific.
Okay, thank you. And also to let, are you done, Brandon? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Nope, I'm done.
Okay. And also just to point out for the commissioners that a traffic study will be required as well to the current. You know, when the PCD came in, they had to do, and it was a very, I'll call a spade a spade. It was a very fluffy traffic study, you know, very easy, probably the least, you know, one that they did. But just so everybody knows and you commissioners know that with the design of this, they have to turn in a traffic impact study to the Public Works as well, based on today's standards, whatever those standards may be, with the volumes that Telegraph has right now, with the number of units they're going to put in, they have to account for that traffic study, that traffic impact for this particular subdivision. That's with any subdivision that goes on in the city. So I hope that kind of helped you, Commissioner Musso, did that?
Well, what about the bridge though then? So do they have to deal with the Army Corps of Engineers because of the cattails and all that stuff, or no?
Brandon?
That wash is what's considered a jurisdictional wash, and they will have to deal with all the entities, the federal entities that are there. So it's like what they have at Main Street by Brio, at the Sky at Brio. They have a bottomless arch that's over that wash. Typically, they won't let them put a full structure in there. So that'll be dealt with at the time of construction drawings.
Brandon, this is Commissioner Anderson. With regards to this, so according to the map, the only part that is impacted by the floodplain is the bridge. So when they submit final drawings, will they have to, I'm assuming they'll have to show that the bridge is compliant with the flood zone and its appropriate height above the flood zone and so forth?
That is correct. They'll have to do that at the time of construction drawings. And then they'll also have to show us that bridge is designed to handle the event and it can be maintained, and it'll have to be approved by all the federal agencies that they have to get through.
Brandon, this is Commissioner Bullock. So with the secondary access coming in and there's no bridge there, and it still goes through the floodplain, is the fire department okay with that? Or
so what I believe,
if there's an event or something fails, both our accesses are going through the floodplain.
that you're right. That is a secondary access, so it's not as critical as a main one. We haven't discussed that any further than what we are right now. Yeah, we can. I don't know. I think Matt is on there again. So Chief Evans.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Chief Evans, Commissioner Bullock, did you say that this wasn't the secondary access that you wanted to see?
No, that secondary access does not meet the code. So there's a couple of pieces that require you to hit to a secondary access. And remember, it's not just your way in too. It is also established to be able to get people out. So if something were to happen in that area, and that would close off the main road, that we wouldn't even be able to get the people out of there as far as any type of protection. So the code, the fire code requires a secondary access. When you talk about secondary access, it's required to be half the distance of the diagonal of a property or that project away from the first access. So when you look at the way it's proposed, it doesn't, the walking trail being 14 feet doesn't meet the code. The remote piece of it doesn't meet the code, all that kind of stuff. Now, those are all things that are very possible to be worked out, because there's another piece in there too, as far as the dead end of that street that doesn't meet, but that's something that's pretty easy for them to fix. So there's options for them, but the way that they have it designed, in my opinion, it does not meet the code.
Thank you. Drew, Commissioner Anderson here.
Yeah.
Question. So, with regards to one of the comments that one of the gentlemen made here about the zoning maps and so forth, and not necessarily sure if this necessarily impacts our decision on this or not, but I think it's probably a valid point. So I went on the city GIS map, and it doesn't show any of the zoning for short-term nightly rental for this area. It only shows the commercial, community commercial at the bridge area. So that's the only thing that is showing, is basically the bridge as community commercial. Now, we know from the minutes that the zoning was approved for that. So I guess my question is, how do we facilitate that map getting updated so the public's aware of what is and isn't in places?
Well, we'll look into that. Like I say, what Coral Canyon can help with that too. I've actually talked to them because of reading some of those comments that they've kind of need to get that kind of broadened out and updated. And we can help by adding some GIS stuff on ours that we put over. Again, a PCD, that is the zone on it, for the city wise. But we can help out and add some dotted lines like we've done in some other areas, get that brought up on there. So
I think that would, at a minimum, that would help to answer some people's questions when they go researching and so forth.
Drew, this is Commissioner Hanson. As you know, and we heard tonight even quite a number of comments about people not being contacted back then, which is kind of something that not a whole lot to do about. But just to reiterate, it's my understanding when the city is going to have a situation for public comment, residents need to be notified within 130 feet, 330 feet, 300 feet. Can you tell me and everybody else here that needs or wants to be educated if that's happening currently? Maybe not so much why it didn't happen, because it's my understanding nobody lived that far away when this initially came to the council back in 2016, I think it was. Can you spend just maybe 30 seconds or whatever on that, letting us know that the city's doing what's legally required?
yeah, state code requires notice go out 300 feet from any edge of a property being changed. And you send out that notice. So again, we took this area with the other ones up in the town center and what it is we only accept, and again, this is for everybody's protection, is we have title company or the county itself is the only ones we accept names from. So they have the programs that they can draw bubbles around a particular property. And when anybody falls in that, especially at the county, it works real well. It automatically spits out the owner, the owner of those pieces within that 300-foot bubble. Now, the city, not that it happened here, but in some cases where I may not have that many people around a property, our minimum is it has to send out at least 30 notices. And if there's nobody within the 300 feet, then we make that bubble grow bigger until we hit a minimum of 30. But just for everybody's understanding, there were 12 sheets with 12 owners on each sheet that notices went out to on that zone change. So it's 20 notices went out that fell within the 300-foot bubble. on this particular case, just so you know. But again, we're not here talking about, again, that was 5 years ago on that. But again, that's all, you know, we have that data and the bubbles around.
As far as what's happening now, we have done that, correct? Not 5 years ago, I'm talking now, currently.
Now, yes, everybody within 300 feet. I actually think it went farther. Now, again, you know, there were quite a few notes. I'm not sure exactly how many went out on this preliminary plat, but again, we only hold the public hearing with the planning commission on preliminary plats.
Okay.
So the council doesn't hold public hearings on preliminary plats, because really a preliminary plat looks at, does it meet the zoning that it's go on? Are the lots the minimum size that it needs to be? You know, we look at that stuff. We have a whole checklist for preliminary plats on roads, fire hydrants, all those kind of things. You know, and then we have checklists that they have to provide on that plat.
All right. Thank you. Dick, looks like you're gonna jump out of your seat. I'll give you 15 seconds. I hope it's good, because I never do this, and I'll probably never do it again.
The city gave us a form back in 2018 that specifically states that when you have a planned community development, every citizen within the development has to be notified of any zone change.
No.
Unfortunately, that's 2018. This original zone change took place 5 years ago, 2016. But the caveat to that is the zone change that was requested 2 weeks ago, our notification was a Zoom meeting.
Okay, I'll take that into consideration. Drew, I appreciate you letting us know that you've done the legal requirement according to the city, and we'll trust your efforts on that. Yeah, this isn't as well. Okay, commissioners, any other comments? I would like to ask the applicant after any commissioner comments if he wanted to address anything. I'm sure he wants to say something. Maybe not, but please open it up. Commissioners, do you have any other questions or concerns or comments amongst us or for staff?
Well, it kind of seems to me, this Commissioner Schill, that we have a HOA miscommunication. We don't have anything to do with HOA. This isn't our position. So I think, is that right, Drew? I mean, this isn't our battle, HOA. We can't get into that.
Yeah, state law tells us where to stay out of HOA, CC&Rs, all those things. We're just, that's the line where we don't cross and they can't cross into ours, I guess is a good way to say it too. So
I guess we admonish them to go legal rounds on HOA, but that's not our position.
Right.
Do we know, this is Commissioner Anderson, do we know, are there any legal actions between the homeowners and the HOA that might impact any of this?
Currently?
Currently.
I'm not aware of any. Drew, are you aware of any?
I didn't, the question, it was kind of muffled a bit. Can you restate it?
So my question is are there any current legal actions between the applicant and say the homeowners regarding any of this, any of the complaints that have been alleged tonight that would impact?
Not that I'm aware of, but again, we're not in them, so we generally won't hear about them unless somebody, you know, wants to tell us, oh yeah, we're suing, you know.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there is any.
I haven't heard of nothing, no legal litigations between either party at this point, no, that I'm aware of.
So Drew, this is Commissioner Hanson again. I just want to ask this to make sure I'm understanding what my, so it's my understanding they have the ability to build 151 units between the two zones, 7A and 7B.
Correct.
Tonight, we're dealing with one of the zones where they want to put 99 lots. It's already zoned for nightly rentals. That's not in dispute. That's not up for discussion tonight. That it's already a zone change that has taken place previous to this meeting. So the way I'm understanding it is the facts on the table is whether or not, as a commissioner, I want to recommend to City Council if it's a good idea to put 99 rentals in that zone. Is it that easy?
Yeah, that's simplifying it, yes.
Okay. Do we have the applicant on the phone or in the chambers?
He, I think, is on the line. Drake, you there? I know you're chomping at the bit. Brock, is he still there?
Yeah, he's still in the meeting, but he's not talking.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, excellent.
Who's this? Who's speaking?
Drake.
Thank you. Drake, this is Commissioner Hanson. I'll give you some time to maybe address some of the things that you've heard tonight or something that you'd like us to know.
Can you hear me, Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
All right. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and thank you for the chance to respond to the public comments. We have been doing this for years and years and years and are very accustomed to having the opportunity to respond to the public comments in the hearing. And we thank you for the opportunity to do that tonight. We, recognize it's probably been almost an hour that you heard public comments. And so we hope that we have a few more minutes than 3 minutes to respond to these questions and comments that were made during the public hearing. I made fairly copious notes, as I'm sure you did, listening to the folks who presented tonight. And so I'd like to walk through each of those as appropriate and respond to what they said. Nancy Schriever stood up and spoke on behalf of a different owner in Coral Canyon that has some environmental background. I think Drew responded a little bit to that, but let me just be clear that 20 years ago when the PCD was approved, as you all know, State Trust Land is the landowner of the Coral Canyon property. Many of you who know the planning and development transactions that Scylla enters into, they cannot even approach a development deal unless archaeological studies have been completed and cleared for the land. So that was done as part of the PCD original approval 20 years ago. Geologic, meaning geotech, environmental studies were accomplished. And so we are conforming to those studies. Things haven't changed. Although it's been 20 years, things have not changed out there. We are aware of wetlands that are in the broader area of Area 7 that we will absolutely be conforming to. And so to throw out there that we are not being sensitive to environmental matters is just simply unfounded and untrue. And so I wanted to be clear with that and make sure that we are discerning between truth and error as we listen to the comments tonight. There was also a comment based on the thing that she read that this was only approved for single family residences. That is, again, absolutely unfounded and untrue. When you go to the zoning chart associated with the plan of Area 7, it's referred to as mixed residential. Mixed residential can mean single family detached. It can mean single family attached. There's multiple residential uses that come under the mixed residential zone within the original PCD of Coral Canyon. Again, we need to be very clear that we are not listening to public clamor based on opinion and based on unfounded comments. We need to be clear of what the facts are, and I'm going to attempt to help to address what those are. And I think the staff report in and of itself helps clearly identify what is factual and what is not factual. Raymond Olson stood up and indicated that vacation rentals started by vacation rentals by owner, meaning that the owners live there. I'm not a vacation rental expert, but I don't think it's I mean, again, opinions can change. I don't know of where VRBO took off as far as having an owner live in the residence. Some do and some don't. And again, I guess, sorry, I probably shouldn't even brought up the vacation rental by owner because again, tonight we are not here to ask for permission to do nightly rentals there. That is water under the bridge. It was approved multiple years ago. He mentioned that living near Area 7 with these nightly rentals would be similar to living to Splash Mountain. let me be clear about another fact. There is no proximate resident currently in that Coral Canyon area who lives closer than 500 feet from this area. The reason why we call this the island is that it's entirely surrounded by golf course, and it's hundreds of feet away from any resident or even future residential use. Again, we're not approving nightly rental tonight. We are requesting an approval of the preliminary plat that's before you. Gordon Burns stood up and talked about a whole list of what he refers to as errors in the Coral Canyon PCD. I respect that comment, and we are committed to do everything within our power to eliminate any confusion. But again, let me be very clear with Co-West and its predecessor companies, Jack Fisher Homes. We have proposed very few, if any, zone changes to the PCD. And so while I appreciate his comment, I want to be clear that those are not just directed to Co-West and our predecessor company. As I understand, we may have been involved earlier, and this predates my time, in the zoning for the recreational resort short-term zoning here. But beyond that, I'm not aware of any other zone that we've zone change that we have proposed. Again, I'm just trying to kind of wade through the comments. We understand this is emotionally charged because of where people live and where people have invested property and that, but we also want to be very clear about the facts that are before us tonight. Elin Shannon stood up and said there's no trust for Co-West. Had we known about the 2016 proposed zone change for this area, he said that they might have been there. I can't speak to the notice that was there. I think Drew responded to that correctly. Again, we're not approving nightly rental tonight. Mark Benyon stood up and he asserted that proper notice has never been given. Again, that's just simply not true for the zone changes and the preliminary plats that we have proposed. We have followed state and city statute. It is not true. I need to be clear about that. He mentioned how Area 7 has birds of prey and several lakes, if I understood him right through the audio I was listening to, wetlands. No mention of protection of the sensitive area. Again, let me be very clear. We are not going to develop in the sensitive wetland areas. We have identified the access point, which there was a fair discussion on. We will follow any Army Corps of Engineer, any jurisdictional matters there, and we will do that above board and very clearly. There is a wetland area on the north side of this area that we're proposing within kind of in the middle of Area 7. That is identified as open space. We are not touching that. Again, it's untrue to say that there's been no mention of protecting the sensitive areas. We absolutely will be. He brought up some nightly rental comments. Again, we are not here to address nightly rental. He asserted that HOA funds will be used for improvements within Area 7. There could be absolutely nothing farther from the truth on the face of the earth. Area 7 is not even within the covered property of the HOA at Coral Canyon. It has never been annexed. It will not ever be annexed. HOA funds will not be used for improvements in Area 7. Let me be absolutely abundantly clear. That is false and untrue. Lori Saunders stood up and showed you pictures, which I'm at a disadvantage to, but as I understand, she showed you pictures from the viewpoints of 14th Fairway and the Beehive home. She talked to residents of the Beehive home, it sounds like, and then showed you pictures of Sienna Hills, which frankly, I don't know what Sienna Hills has to do with our application before you tonight. She showed you some trash pictures from the existing town center. That is an unfortunate situation. All the owners of these nightly rentals have responsibility to cover their trash issues there. I am the president of the town center HOA. That issue has been raised to us, and in fact, we just had a meeting this afternoon with our community manager. We are addressing a way to help mitigate or ameliorate the trash situation there. On busy weekends, we are planning to bring a dumpster in to handle any excess trash because, again, we have these weekly intervals of trash collection. it's a fair comment, and we are addressing that. Dick Saunders stood up and mentioned, some history, how 20 years ago the Coral Canyon PCD was established. He raised some issues about voting and things. I want to be clear that the CCNRs, if you dive deep into the CCNRs allow for amendments and modifications to what's happening in the Coral Canyon zone. And so, anyway, again, a lot of opinion, a lot of just some comments that you can hear opinions on both sides. But he raised, again, just some negative comments about questionable zoning. We have followed the notice requirements for our zone change approvals and for our preliminary plat or other plat approvals. Some other comments that were read in, about doing things behind the backs, how nightly rental increases crime. We actually reached out to the police chief of Washington City and asked them that specific question. Have you actually seen increased crime in the city due to nightly rentals? And he never got back to us. We talked to him on the phone and he never replied to us. So you can, I guess, interpret that to whatever you want to interpret it. I would encourage you to go talk to the police chief yourself and discern that. We don't see that from our perspective that crime is increasing with nightly rentals.
Drake, I'm sorry.
Let me just express that. Yeah, just one quick last comment, Commissioner. The fire chief mentioned that this does not meet the code for secondary access. Honestly, this is the first we have ever heard of that. This has been, with the city staff for quite a while and was not ever raised to us that it was a concern for fire access. We will we will do everything within our power to address the fire access requirement. As Drew pointed out, it's very similar to what has been done at Highland Park and at the Views. Just one quick note, and Drew or the chief can correct me, but in addition to the secondary access, my understanding is when there is one primary access, that one primary access also has to be kind of separated. And so that's why you see an island in between kind of the way in and the way out at the primary access. And we'll certainly conform to that. We appreciate the comments. We appreciate the opportunity to respond to the comments and be very clear as to what is fact and what is not fact. And we request your approval to the City Council for what we're proposing tonight. Again, the zoning is in place. The layout is very well planned. We have a great amenity area. You can see there it takes up a significant portion of our interior site there, and we appreciate the time to address these questions and are happy to respond to any other questions.
Drake, this is Commissioner Hanson. One other thing that we heard had to do with the height of any planned development there with, let's just say for vacation rentals moving forward of 25 feet. You're aware of that, yes or no?
I became aware of that this evening, thanks to Drew's great summary of what happened in the past. The CCNRs in the other side of the development, which again, Area 7 is not part of the Area 7 was never annexed into the covered property for the CCNRs. They allow for something higher, but we are aware of the 25, as Drew stated tonight, and the plans that we have for these units will conform to the 25-foot height restriction.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Drake, this is Commissioner Hans again. It doesn't look like they do, at least not right now. Maybe they'll come up with one. You mentioned that you weren't aware of your access point. I guess I should say points, not meeting the code. You became aware of that tonight, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And let me just point out, the chief was, I think, good to point out that there's certainly ways to work around things, and we embrace that ability, the opportunity to work with the chief. We know the chief well and respect what he does, and we look forward to working with staff on ensuring that our access is appropriate.
Okay. I think it was brought up here on the dais. One of the commissioners mentioned that both access points whether conforming or not, are going to go through the floodplain. I thought that was interesting because the floodplain is small, and we saw it on a map, and both access points do go through there. For me as a commissioner, am I misunderstanding that? Right there, it cuts.
No,
Okay, I stand corrected.
no, I think that's correct. But as Drew Ellerman pointed out, traversing or bridging over floodways or floodplains is very common. We're developing up at Brio, and as you know, there's a very major wash on the east side of Brio, between Brio and Main Street in Washington City, and there's an apartment project that we are developing, building there, and we can span or bridge the jurisdictional wash. Again, we have to conform to all of the requirements of the federal agencies or any other governmental agencies that apply, but it's not a very uncommon thing to bridge a floodplain to get to a developable piece of land.
Right. Let me clarify something here, Drake. Not with you, Drake, with some of the other commissioners. We're talking amongst ourselves as you're making a comment. I just want to make sure I have this understood correctly. Drew, does that second access point, the picture I'm looking at, I'm reading it that it does go over the floodplain. Is that correct? Both of them?
It will, yes. Over here, I just didn't, let me just get you a little, that's why I had the floodplain
right
on there earlier. It does continue this way.
Okay, so I am correct that they both will go over the floodplain.
Yeah, no matter where you put a second access on this entire island, you're going to cross the floodplain somewhere, even if it ends up being up here, anywhere coming down, you're going to cross the floodplain twice.
All right.
No doubt.
Drake, I have just a comment. This is Commissioner Hanson again. I've never met you. I just have a comment. I'm interested in your feedback. I'm not saying this to be negative. I'm not saying this to be anything other than just wanting to ask you a simple question. And I've asked this, I think the last time, 2 weeks ago, maybe it was the prior meeting. Shouldn't this be easier? I mean, as a developer, you've got hundreds of people coming to us saying things. Now, I will acknowledge in this meeting that many of the things that we read are actually not true. When it comes down to rubber meets the road, the comments that we read, information given to us, it turns out they're misinformed or uninformed, or they just plan lying or straight lying to us. I don't know. But as I get closer and closer to uncovering the truth, I still fall back on there's something that's missing here. These residents are living in Coral Canyon. It is a nice area. They want it to continue to be a nice area. You build nice products. I want that. I understand all that. But there's a disconnect of why we're getting so much pushback from the residents. And I just want to ask you that question. Shouldn't this be easier? There's something that I just can't put my finger on. I don't know what that is. I don't know how to ask that question, but I feel like it should be easier. I shouldn't have so many people commenting about things that ultimately some are true and there is some concern. But I just want to know what you would tell me as a commissioner if I say, hey, shouldn't this be easier?
I really appreciate that question, Commissioner Hanson. It's such a fair question, and I thank you for asking it. This is how I would respond to that. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we recognize that land use decisions and applications are super emotionally charged. There is apparently, and we've been hearing it. I've been with Coal West for almost 3 years, and so and the last year I've been the president of the master HOA at Coral Canyon. We are within this period of what's referred to in the development world as the declarant control period at Coral Canyon. That allows the declarant to appoint members of the board, members of the DRC. And so I've been on that board the last almost year. So I've heard that, and it's hard for me to address kind of what happened before me. But as far as the distrust of Coal West, I think that's one element why you have been hearing from some of the residents about that. I think another reason why you're hearing from so many residents is they're just so used to not seeing anything in this island. And I mean, all of us would prefer not to ever see another home built in our view shed or in the areas that we look out our windows or when we're in our backyard. I mean, it's certainly understandable why someone doesn't want us to do this development or any development on Area 7. I understand that it's very emotionally charged, but let me kind of, I guess, sum up my response to your very fair, and I very much appreciate the question. This is how I would sum up. I think this can provide a very factual, objective context to what you've heard tonight and recently with a separate application of some amendment proposed in the PCD zone at Coral Canyon. Again, factual based. There are over 1,200 owners at Coral Canyon. When you do the simple math and even being conservative, even being gracious to the numbers of comments that you have received tonight, you said about 100. So on this specific application, I think 100 would equate to around 8% of the total owners that are part of the Coral Canyon community. It's certainly a part of the society we live in, that there is generally a very vocal minority that attempts to influence public policy and public decisions. I think that's what you're seeing tonight, that a small percentage of the overwhelming ownership at Coral Canyon has either stood to the podium or presented letters to you ahead of the meeting. On the previous, and I don't mean to kind of mix these two together, but they're kind of inherently mixed together. On the previous PCD zoning proposal that we've been in front of you very recently, there was, I would, again, be conservative, be generous, say 200 people submitted comments, whether in person or over a letter or email. That would be about around 16%. So I think we have to understand the context of the messages and the communication that you've been receiving. It certainly feels overwhelming. I'm sure sitting in that chair that you all sit in, being bombarded with 100 or 200 comments on one specific land use application has to feel like overwhelming. Certainly the majority of people have to be against it. They have to be against this nasty developer and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But again, to zoom out, to kind of breathe a little bit and to look at the objective facts, you have heard from a very, very small percentage of the over 1,200 owners at Coral Canyon.
Drake, I'll be fair.
Thank you.
I'll be fair and say that the 10%, roughly 8% you mentioned for this time, roughly 20% for last time. Or actually it was 25 or whatever. Let's put them together and just call it 20% conservatively. To me, that's a big number. I mean, most projects that I've seen in my 2.5 years have 1, 2, 3 comments maybe. So I can only think of one other project that had about 40 comments. And so that's what puts me back on my heels. And it's not to argue, I'm just saying that while you see it as a minority, I see it as a big enough number to get my attention for me as a commissioner. One of the, factually, what I see in front of me as a commissioner, maybe this is a comment for the other commissioners where I stand, not necessarily directed at Drake at all, is that they have the right at this point legally to build vacation rentals in this zone. That was approved. In asking Drew this question, I don't know if it was in this meeting or if it was just prior. Theoretically speaking, if they wanted to try to cram 151 residential units in this vacation rentals, they could. Is it realistic? No. Do they have the ability to build inside there? Yes. It sounds like yes, they do. Who am I to say that that can't happen? I will say this, the one thing that has come to light in this conversation that makes me pause at all is the bridges. We had our fire chief tell us it's not to code. In previous to this meeting, if something wasn't to code, I don't know if I'd ever approved it personally. So I'm a little concerned about that. I don't know if that deserves a denial. I don't know if that deserves a tabling, and I understand they're going to work together to get and accomplish that. But I'm far past taking word for it at this point. This is such a hot item. I would like to see that solidified from our fire chief that would sign off on the fact that that's taken care of and that concern is not there for me personally. So I'm on the fence. I mean, part of me understands where sometimes we feel like our hands are tied, and they've done what they needed to do, and they do make nice developments, whether or not they match and all that. I mean, I agree with some of those comments, but yet they do a decent job. So that's where I'm at. I could see both ways. I don't know what to do, but that's where I'm at as a commissioner. Each of you have an opinion. If you want to share it, great. If you don't, either or. But at some point, we'll make a motion and see what we want to do.
So I have a question for Drake. Drake, what are the designs of these units going to look like? Are they going to be more like the 8th and City Center, or are they going to be more like Coral Springs?
Thanks, Commissioner Russo, for that question. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So we haven't finalized the design. We certainly have the footprints that are shown on there, but I think it will be fair to say it won't necessarily look like the 8th. The 8th are duplexes, and they're very large, and they have these private 10 by 20 pools that come standard in their backyards. These will not be like that. They will have their own private pools in their backyard. So it will not look like the 8th. As far as the town center is concerned, really, I guess in kind of full disclosure, the footprints that we have that conform to these units or these lots that are shown on the preliminary plat are for our Kingston product, which we did a very successful nightly rental project up at the Ledges. And so I guess that's kind of a specific response to your question. In more general terms, these Kingston units that we did up at the Ledges do not have pitched roofs. Coral Ridge that you brought up has pitched roofs, and so these would not be pitched. These would be a flat roof, and so yeah. If that answers your question, let me know. If not, I can try again.
Okay, that answers the question. But the Kingston up at the Ledges also conformed with the style of homes that were in that immediate neighborhood for the most part, and that's, I think, one of the grievances that a lot of your homeowners have is that, when you put in the city center, it's a very modern, design that doesn't necessarily conform with the rest of the area, and I can agree with that. But I think part of the problems you were having is that we got design issues. Part of it, there's no doubt that you can actually, it's zoned for what you want to do. And I guess at this point, without seeing what the package is going to look like or what the homes are going to look like, that's another discussion still that still has to go through the approval process. But I'm just, like I said, I was curious as to find out what we're going to do over there, because there's a difference also between 1,800 square foot units and 3,500 square foot units. I think those ones up in the Ledges, the ones I've seen and that I'm familiar with, a lot of them are 5-bedroom, 5.5 bath. Is that the floor plan that you were thinking of? Is that because I know there's a couple of floor plans up there.
Yeah, no, the Kingston is the larger, the smaller is the Valhalla up there, and so it would be the larger of the two. Yeah. And I hear what you're saying, Commissioner, and I certainly respect that. There's nothing on the preliminary plat, kind of checklist of requirements that require us to show a design that goes with these units, these platted lots that we're proposing. The other element, just to reiterate, is Area 7 is not it's not covered by the CC&Rs of Coral Canyon. It's never been annexed to the covered property governed by the CC&Rs.
Drake, thanks for being on this, Commissioner Hanson. I appreciate it. Commissioner, any other questions or comments you'd like to discuss? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So I have a couple, I guess, thoughts here. This is Commissioner Anderson. I think that from a planning commission standpoint, probably the biggest concern is what the fire chief said with regard to the secondary access not meeting code and going through the floodplain. That's probably the biggest red flag. Is that is that enough to is that enough to deny the project? I mean, probably not, because assuming they can work through that, but they would have to work through that and get that to where it does meet code. As far as 25-foot height versus 35-foot height issue, we've got the city council that has said that it's 25 foot. The planning department said it's 25 foot, and Drake has now said that the product will conform with 25 foot. I think we can put that issue to bed by putting that as a condition on here that it's 25 feet. As far as the questions about views and so forth, like you said, it is zoned to build stuff there. They've got zoning approval to build 151 units between 7B and 7A, and if they go with 99 units in 7B, then we're still at a low density product. It's not changing the density. It still conforms, and it actually reduces because the homes you're gonna have more open space, not less, and it reduces the density in 7A. So I think the net effect is, at a minimum, probably neutral one way or the other. I think the biggest problem, though, is the issue of HOAs and the communication between the HOAs and the residents. And while we can't necessarily dictate that, I would recommend to the homeowners that have issue with it that that they work that out with CoWest, whether it's in person or in the court system, or however that may be. But that's not really something that we can vote on. I do think it's good what Drake said, and maybe, it might be redundant, but maybe we put it as a condition here, where he said that it's not part of the Coral Canyon, master HOA, and because one of the conditions that we have in here is that, by the time final plat is submitted, that all the deeds and restrictions and CCRs and so forth and HOA restrictions are submitted. I think we could put it as a condition that it is its own separate, HOA with its own separate CCRs. Like I said, it might be redundant, but I think that would, help to mitigate some of that fear. So those are kind of that's my scenario.
One of the things I like to add as a motion, as a condition, is to deal with the trash. He's mentioned that they're working on getting a dumpster in for the other, which that's not for tonight, but if that's a problem with the other, it would be a problem with this one. And so I think that should be a condition that the city council looks at and make sure that's taken care of. Because I never really thought about it until I saw the picture that was given to us, that if trash doesn't come except Thursdays to Thursdays, yeah, it gets put out Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then sits there until Thursday. I wouldn't like that either. So that's something that is and should be a condition for this product.
I personally think, this is Commissioner Musso, I personally think we need to table it until they get that secondary egress figured out, personally. It's going to open us up for another pain in the butt meeting, but not necessarily.
Not necessarily. It's the way I understand it. And Drew, you can chime in and correct me if I'm wrong. This is Commissioner Hansen. If this was tabled, so they would have time to address the access issues with the fire chief and with the city, it would come back before us as a public comment, possibly only to that particular item. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The public hearing, you would continue it, but only for that and that alone. Yeah.
See, because the fire chief said also, though, that even the way they have that drawn out, it's still too close to the original point. And he brought up the exact points that I was trying to make initially about what if you're trying to get people out of there, it's not going to work. So I think there has to be a completely different access, secondary access out of the property. And I don't know where that is, but I think it has to be a completely different one other than a cart path.
Commissioner Anderson, so if we table it, can we table it with a list of conditions that we want to submit for that?
That is correct, right, Drew? We needed to, if tabling was an option and a motion that was passed, it would come with those conditions that we wanted to see fixed. Is that correct?
Yeah, your motion would be, I want to table it for this or this or this. You know, if it's only one thing, then, I'd make a motion to table this so that they can work out get with the fire, chief and the engineer and public works and work that out. Now, I'm not sure why, but let me just clear this off, sorry, but I'm not buying that this is too close. That might have been misunderstood.
This is Commissioner Hanson. I heard it the same way. Maybe I
know, but that's, I'm just going to call in question.
Drew's going to disagree with me.
That's over 600 feet.
Nonetheless, it still need to be addressed, correct? I mean,
Yeah. No, we still, it sounds like we need to talk about it, and that's fine, but we'll work that out. If you guys feel you want a table, then and you want to see that, that's what I would say you do. And get that on there. But again, I'm just pointing out, that's over 600 feet.
It is over 600 feet for the entrance, but it's using the same exact road.
Yeah.
So you're tying it into the same access point, Drew. So no, it doesn't meet it.
Matt, time out. I don't want to get into a big argument on this because it's not, you're talking this up here. You're not talking on Telegraph, correct? I wanted to point that out. You're talking here. Then I will agree with you. But I hope you're not talking. Does that make sense? That's what I was talking.
That's why I said that there's possibilities, but the way that it's drawn now, it does not meet the code.
That's fine, but I want to be clear here. We're talking about this distance to this distance is your concern. Because if we're tabling, that's what I want to talk about. Correct?
I can't see where you're pointing at as far as it goes.
I just drew it in red.
I get that. I'm not on my computer. I'm in another meeting right now, so I'm on my phone.
Let's table it.
That's the fire chief, Drew, that you're speaking with.
Yes. Fine. Yeah, let's table it.
This Commissioner Anderson, I make a motion that we table this application with respect to 4 different items. One, that the fire secondary access be worked out between the applicant and the fire chief. That it meets, that the access meets all fire codes, that they address the question of whether or not you can take the secondary access through a floodplain without a second bridge or not. Second issue, that the put in a stipulation that the HOA, all the deeds, restrictions, CC&Rs are for a separate HOA that's not part of Coral Canyon, that it takes care of its own governing and funding and so forth. Number 3, that the 25-foot height is followed as far as height restrictions. And number 4, that they address concerns with extra trash, possibly permanent dumpster locations or something of that nature, and maybe even look at the parking, to make sure there's sufficient parking, sufficient trash pickup for the area.
Okay, I have a motion. Looking for a second. Or
State number 4 again, please.
Number 4, that that the issue of extra trash be resolved with possible permanent dumpsters or something of that nature to deal with the excess trash that might be there between dumpster pickups.
Thank you.
This is Jill. Can we make another item that the maps be updated and current?
No, I wouldn't do that. That's a little different than this proposal. I mean, we'll take care of that. Don't worry, but I can't tag that onto this.
Okay, Drew, thanks. I have a motion with those four conditions that are added.
Deal with the excess craft that might be there.
I have a motion and I have a second. Individual voting.
Commissioner Hanson,
Yes, sir.
sorry, let me pause. Just, I guess, to clarify, I'm assuming with the audience here, I'm assuming the reason that Drew said we can't do that as part of this is because that's a city issue. It's not an issue of the applicant. So we're not putting that on the applicant. That's something the city has to take care of. Correct?
That is true. I should have said that. Too. Yeah, all the city's going to take care of it. This does not have to do with the developer. What we're trying to do is get the things buttoned up that the developer that we pointed out here, and have them come back to us that we can then make a decision whether or not to recommend or deny that to city council. I do have a motion and I do have a second. Individual voting. Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
By the way, this is again to table this item. For 2 weeks, Drew, is that correct? Or
Yeah, for March 3rd.
okay. I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling through this. Commissioner Anderson, you said aye, correct? Commissioner Shield?
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzampu?
Aye.
Commissioner Musso?
Aye.
I'm Commissioner Hanson. I'm an aye as well. The motion to table item 7C passes unanimously. It will be put on the agenda for 2 weeks. Drew, are people notified of this? Like they
Nope.
are?
No.
Okay.
No, because they're here tonight. They got that notice. They can watch, the film, knowing that that's been tabled till that time.
Okay. We have been here for a little bit of time. I'm going to call for a 5 to 10 minute break so people can use the restroom, whatever they might need to do, and we'll rejoin after that.
I just don't want to go through another puzzle.
All right, this is Commissioner Hanson with a 1-minute roll call to come back and resume the meeting. Okay, Drew, are you back at your desk and you can hear us okay?
Yes, I am here and ready to go.
And Kathy, are you back at your station and ready to go?
I'm ready.
Excellent. We'll resume the meeting for tonight. We're going to hear the preliminary plat for item 7A. This is a public hearing as well for consideration and recommendation to City Council for the Brio Phase 5A and 5D preliminary plat located approximately Gemstone Way and Camino Borde, I'm guessing. Applicant is Co-West Home. Drew, I'll turn time over to you.
Thank you. As stated, applicants request an approval of the preliminary plat for Brio 5A and 5D subdivisions located, again, where you stated Gemstone and Camino Borde. The applicant is proposing 58 lots. The area of coverage is 8.282 acres. The zoning at this particular location is the Brio Planned Community Development, or Brio PCD. The surrounding zoning is open space to the north, PUDR to the east, and Brio PCD to the west and south. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances at this location. Staff's reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of this preliminary plat as outlined. Therefore, staff would like to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Brio 5A and 5D subdivisions onto the City Council. Based on the findings and subject to the conditions in the report, and they are just the standard 12 conditions on this one, no extras. And I'll be glad to answer any questions commissioners might have on 5A and 5D of Brio.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff?
Drew, this is Commissioner Musso. The only question I have is, it looks like there were 5-foot setbacks on each side of the house, I'm assuming.
Yes, this is in that area of that new modified patio home development that they're putting out. And so they had the 5-foot on each side, which puts it basically 10 foot between houses.
Right.
So.
These are all freestanding.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, I will at this time open up the public hearing for item 7A. Are there anybody here in the chambers that has a comment? Or anything needs to be read? Arden, we're good? Eldon. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Shill. I'd make a motion that we close this public hearing.
I have a first and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed. Any additional comments?
Who made this second, please?
Commissioner Fitzonfu was the second.
Thank you.
Shill was the motion. Any comment, any additional comments from the commissioners? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion.
Commissioner Anderson, so Drew, what is what's the density and zoning for this area? Just out of curiosity. I don't see
Sorry, that's getting muffled again.
What's the density and the zoning for this? I don't see it on here. Just out of.
Well, it'll go back to again, a PCD kind of sets those tones of what, they'll allow in a certain area. And this is the plan that was approved. I mean, I could figure it out for you real quick. Density wise, I just take the number of units and divide it by, so 58 lots divided by 8.262 is 7.0 dwelling units per acre. And again, just to help you guys understand on a PCD, they have a maximum number of dwelling units, when it comes down that they've been approved for. So that's how we base all of our water lines, our sewer lines, all those other things, street designs, etc., based on a maximum number of dwelling units. And that's how Brio has always been. 856 is the number. They're going to come in under that, just for your information on that. So this area was actually just amended a while back. Some of the commissioners who have been here for a while probably remember we amended this area, and then down by their rec center amenity area, they redid that area a little bit too, to add this new patio kind of smaller home for some folks who just don't want yards and have to maintain them, and to just have a smaller patio home design.
Okay, this is Commissioner Musso. I make a motion that we recommend approval with the standard conditions of preliminary plat for Brio 5A and 5D subdivisions located at approximately Gemstone Way and Camino Bordet. And this is, we send it on to the city council, and let's be sent on to the city council with the conditions as outlined, the standard 12 conditions.
Second that.
I have first by, I'm sorry, I have wow. I'm losing it, fellas. I have a motion and by Commissioner Musso. I have a second by Commissioner Fitzampu. Individual voting, Commissioner Fitzampu.
Aye.
Commissioner Musso.
Aye.
Commissioner Shield.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Item 7A passes unanimously. Moves on to City Council. The next item is 7B. It's preliminary plat. It's also a public hearing for consideration and recommendation. The City Council for the Brio Phase 6A, located at Villa del Sol and Camino Bordet. Applicant again is Cole West. And I'll turn the time over to you, Drew.
Okay, thank you. Applicant again requesting approval of a preliminary plat as stated for Brio 6A. The applicant is proposing 18 lots and the area of coverage is 6.136 acres. The zoning again is the Brio Planned Community Development or Brio PCD. Surrounding zoning is open space to the north, east, and west, and Brio PCD to the south. Again, as that reference tells you, this is up on that north tip of Brio. So they're getting close to finishing up, commissioners. So just to let you know that. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances at this location. Staff's reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of this preliminary plat as outlined. Therefore, staff would like to recommend to you, the Planning Commission, to recommend approval of the preliminary plat for Brio 6A subdivision onto the City Council. Of course, that's based on the findings, subject to the conditions, and again, this 12 standard conditions, no extras for this particular Phase 6A of Brio. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Drew, do they have to have retention on this somewhere?
It's all part of the street design, et cetera, in this development. And it's a master overall detention. Brandon could address that if he thinks he needs to add a little more.
Brian, that's condition number 12. That's the LID requirement.
Oh, okay.
That's the new one that came in as of September.
Yeah, there's actually 2 conditions on every preliminary plat that you can go, I think it's condition number 1 or 2, talks about detention and drainage, and then the LID is a new state law. But yeah, condition number 1 talks about that there will be a preliminary and a final drainage study, and it's all part of that. So that's, again, one of the standard conditions.
Commissioners, any other questions for staff? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
You don't.
We closed it. We didn't? Oh, we didn't open it either. Man. I don't know who's last on the list tonight, but it's going to get easier, I promise. I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for item 7B for preliminary plat. Anybody in chambers that would like to speak on this item or anything to be read in? Okay, nothing. At this time, I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Ms. Shield, I'd make a motion that we close our public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Shield, a second by Commissioner Fitzonfu. To close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed. We'll open it up for any comments or additional questions for staff. If not, then we'll look for a motion.
I'll make the motion to recommend approval to City Council for the preliminary plat approval for Brio 6A subdivision located at approximately Via del Sol and Camino Borde, with the conditions outlined in the staff report.
This Commissioner Musso, I'll second.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Fitzonfu. I've got a second by Commissioner Musso. Individual voting. Commissioner Musso.
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzonfu.
Aye.
Commissioner Shield.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
This is Commissioner Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Item 7B passes for approval. Consideration for approval to City Council. We'll now hear item 7D. It's a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to City Council for the Grapevine Crossing at Sienna Hills. Preliminary plat located approximately Washington Parkway, Grapevine Crossing Road North. Applicant is Belliston Construction Incorporated. Drew, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you. As stated, applicants requesting approval, again, a preliminary plat for Grapevine Crossing at Sienna Hills. Applicant is proposing 9 lots and the area of coverage is 13.77 acres. The zoning designation at this location is the Sienna Hills Planned Community Development, or Sienna Hills PCD. The surrounding zoning is PCD in every direction, north, east, west, and south. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other ordinances at this location. The applicant requests and recommends approval with conditions of this preliminary plat as outlined. Therefore, staff would like to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Grapevine Crossing at Sienna Hills subdivision onto the City Council based on the findings and subject to the conditions in your report. And we have a 13th condition added on here. The water line that is currently going through lot 1 will just need to be relocated and not be so that no buildings will end up crossing that water line. So we just want to put it, I want to put on as condition that that will get moved at some time in the future as this develops out. So that's the only extra condition. Be glad to answer any questions the commission might have.
Commissioner Anderson, Drew, what are they, what's the proposal? What are they planning to build on these lots?
Well, it's zone commercial as part of the Sienna Hills master development area. And so it'll just be, probably pads for retail businesses. We don't know. We don't have any, I don't know if he has any contracts, and if he does, we don't know about them. Sometimes they keep those proprietary, I think the word I'm trying to say, but my tongue's getting all twisted. You know, just for.
Hey, Drew, I'm
What?
not to cut you off. I'm online.
Thanks for joining us, Troy.
Say that again.
Go ahead.
Any of these lots will come in at a future date as a conditional use permit, most likely, based on current city zoning requirement or current city ordinance. It's already part of the construction drawings to move that water line up Street A and then tie back over into where the existing line is. We're trying to get that done prior to mid-April, when the demand on the water system is high enough that we can't shut the line down in order to do the construction. But as far as who's going on any of the lots, yeah, the real estate agents, and the potential tenants don't want that information out until they're ready to formally make those announcements.
Well, Belliston, we're going to open up the public hearing just to see if there's any public comments, but then we have a couple other questions for you as commissioners. At this time, I'm going to open up the public comment for preliminary plat item 7D. Is there anybody here in the chamber that would like to speak to that or anything that needs to be read? All right, I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Commissioner Musso, I move that we close the public hearing on 7D, the crossing at Sienna Hills.
Second that.
Got a motion by Commissioner Musso, second by Commissioner Fitzampu. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed to closing the public hearing? Okay, at this time, I think there was a couple, or at least there was a question up here that was floated. Belliston, this is coming your way.
So, Mr. Belliston, why are the lots so wonky? You know, the lot.
But
typically the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, right?
Yeah, we have kind of preliminary layouts for buildings and how the buildings would go, and so we drew the lines to work within that. But at the end of the day, everything's going to have cross access and cross parking agreements, and so the lines are somewhat irrelevant. You know, it's just separation of whose lot is whose and where they can put the buildings.
This is Commissioner Anderson. I have a question. It's probably not super relevant. I'm just curious. What is this weird symbol right in the middle of the road? It's like 3 or 4 boxes together. I'm sure it's on Legend here somewhere. I'm looking for it. See what I'm saying? It's weird things. Probably like a fire hydrant or something.
Proposed fire hydrant.
All right. Never mind.
Yeah, there's hydrants that are already in and existing. They're already coming off that 16-inch line. We were able to keep that 16-inch line mostly underneath the roadway and worked with Public Works on you know, the design to make sure that they were comfortable with where that was at, with the exception of the fact that we have to move the one that's going right off across the middle of lot 1.
Commissioner Hanson, can I jump in here?
Yes.
So we have this Brandon Public Works. We have we just received the construction drawings back for Grapevine Crossing Roads with the stub roads A and B. This is our second round of reuse, so we're in the process of getting these approved, and then this will be coming back to you guys for a roadway dedication in the future. So just so you guys know that we are working on this. We have been in contact with the engineer and Mr. Belliston about the moving the water line. So this is in the process right now.
Brandon, this is Commissioner Hanson. You're okay with what he said earlier about they are moving that line? That's not something that we need to keep on as a condition, or would you still like that?
That is, we are okay with that. We'd like to get that going as soon as possible, like he said, so we can get ahead of the demand that's coming at us with the water.
Okay. So we can remove the 13th condition.
Yeah, whether or not that's a condition, we're doing it either way.
You want to leave it? Okay. All right.
Brandon, this is Commissioner Anderson again. Not that it affects the end product, but that symbol I was looking at, it looks like you've got, your drafter's got 3 boxes over the top of your hydrant symbol. It might be easier for whoever's building this to read the plan if they clean that up and just whatever that is. Just saying.
I'll look at this a little bit deeper on the plat end, and then I'll also make sure that the construction drawings don't conflict with anything. That's part of our process, that we don't have anything conflicting where they lay. So I'll make sure that they get addressed.
Any other questions or comments for either staff or the applicant from the commissioners tonight? Okay, we did open the public meeting. We did close the public meeting, if I'm not mistaken. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion.
This is Commissioner Musso. I proposed that I make a motion that we send the preliminary, that we approve the preliminary plat approval for the Grapevine Crossing at Sandy Hill subdivision and send it on to City Council for their approval as well. The applicant is Belliston Construction. The owner is
with the 13 conditions, correct?
with the 13 conditions as stated in the staff report.
Second. Got a motion by Commissioner Musso. I've got a second by Commissioner Fitzampu. I've got an abstention from Commissioner Shield. We'll do individual voting. Commissioner Musso.
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzampu.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
It's Commissioner Hanson. I'm an aye as well. Motion passes. And forwarded on to City Council, recommended for approval.
Thank you.
Thanks, Troy. We'll go to item 7E. This is a public hearing for consideration recommendation of City Council for the Majestic Fields preliminary plat located approximately Majestic Drive, Washington Fields Road. Applicant is Immaculate Homes, Jason Christensen. Drew, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you. As stated, applicants requesting approval of a preliminary plat, Majestic Fields subdivision. The applicant is proposing 23 lots and the area of coverage is 9.36 acres. The zoning designation at this particular spot is the single-family residential, 10,000 square foot minimum, or the R110 zoning district. The surrounding zoning is R115 and RA1 to the north, Ag 20 to the west, east, and south. And that's mostly the Staley Farms is what's wraparounds at on all those other fronts. These 2 parcels were recently rezoned into the R110 zoning designation. The proposed subdivision conforms to that approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other ordinances at this spot. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of this preliminary plat. Therefore, staff would like to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for Majestic Fields subdivision onto the City Council based on the findings and subject to the conditions that you see in the report. And again, it's just the standard 12. No extra ones are added. And I'll be glad to answer any questions the commissioners have on Majestic Fields.
This is Shield talking. I wanted to ask Brandon a question about the access on Majestic. Does that intersect with the entrance into the school? It just looks like it's all by itself. I thought you always tried to put them access points together. Just a thought.
Actually not quite sure how close that lines up to it with the exit out of that school. I know we were more concerned with it meeting our access management from the corner of Washington Fields Road. So we were more concerned with that than anything.
Taylor Ricks with Mainline Engineering representing the applicant. As a note, that does line up with one of the primary school accesses, and that will be shown in the construction drawing so that Brandon can confirm that.
This is Commissioner Hanson, either Taylor or Drew, doesn't matter. When this first came to us, one of the questions we had was about construction traffic. Will it be entering and exiting on both, or are we trying to steer them one direction or another to come off of Washington Fields Road or Majestic?
We have not yet submitted grading plans for review, but our current grading plans will show the staging and material area on lot, I think it's lot 6, directly off of Washington Fields Road.
All right. And then Drew, can you remind me, there was something about the retention basin at the front tip there? I'm assuming everything was addressed, but somebody had asked a question when it first came to us about that retention basin. I don't even remember what it was. I just wanted to know if there was something that was needed to be taken care of.
I'll let Brandon address that probably more.
Taylor probably could touch on it better. He's the one that designed it. So it's gonna be detention, not retention. It'll have some retention there with the new low impact development. So it'll hold the 80th percentile of a storm, but I'll let Taylor address his design if that's okay.
So the section that Drew's hatched in red, there's a connecting piece that goes between the two lots. That's going to be a vegetated swell, which gives stormwater an opportunity to percolate into the ground and filter some of the stormwater. And then the bottom of the detention basin will be a sump with engineered materials that promote percolation, and that's known as an infiltration basin. So between the vegetated swell and the infiltration basin, we'll take care of the 80th percentile storm to meet LID requirements.
Just as a comment, this is Commissioner Musso. It's an unusual design on that corner, but I like it a lot because of the visibility. You know, with the school right there and Washington Fields Road as busy as it is, you know, the access for people going across Washington Fields Road from Majestic Heights and that, you know, it's good because it gives them at least sight lines up and down the road so they can see. So it's well thought out.
Brandon, this is Commissioner Hanson. 2 questions. If I'm not mistaken, some improvements to Washington Fields Road will be required during this. And is this also slated to be a traffic light in the future?
I know there's been talks about a traffic light in the future. I don't know. I can't give you a date. And yes, there is full improvements on Washington Fields Road. There will also be 2 right-hand turn lanes for the entrance into the subdivision and then the entrance onto Majestic Drive. So you'll see two deceleration right-hand turn lanes on there with full improvements along Washington Fields Road and full improvements on Majestic Drive as well.
All right. Is there a sidewalk there that's going to be constructed on Washington Fields?
Yes, you can see the sidewalk that they have drawn in that landscape strip. It's kind of it's a meandering sidewalk. You'll see it now.
Okay. Taylor, did you want to say something or add it?
I was just going to mention that we did a warrant study in 2019 for the city and looked at traffic at the intersection of Majestic Drive and Washington Fields Road. The warrant study did not currently meet requirements for a traffic signal, but at the city's request, we've actually designed a traffic signal, and I believe Public Works has shelved that design until warrants are met.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions? Let's see. This is public hearing. This is my mind. Yeah. So we did close the public hearing. Is that correct?
I don't think you opened it.
Help me out here. Come on, everybody. We're on this together at this point. Man.
Yeah, open it up and then, because you haven't opened it yet.
We didn't even open. Oh, I opened the public hearing at this point for item 7E. Is there anybody in the chambers that would like to speak on this item or topic? Or anything that needs to be read in comments? No? All right. No public comment. At this point, look for a motion to close the public comment.
This Shill, I make a propose that we close this public.
Commissioner Anderson, I second.
Got a first from Shield and a second from Anderson. Close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll close the public hearing at this time. Commissioners, do you have any other questions for either the applicant or staff regarding this item?
What's going to happen to our motocross track?
All right, at this time, if there's no other comments from commissioners, I'll look for a motion.
Commissioner Anderson, I make a motion to approve the preliminary plat of Majestic Fields. Conditioned on the 13 standard, or the 12, excuse me, standard conditions.
A motion by Anderson, need a second.
This is Shill, I'll second that.
Second by Shield, individual voting. Commissioner Musso.
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzonfu.
Aye.
Commissioner Shield.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson, I'm an aye as well. Item 7E passes. Gentlemen, thanks for waiting around. Sorry. You got kind of put in the back. Motion passes unanimously. We'll move it to City Council for recommendation for approval. Item number 8A is a zone change request. Drew, this is something I need to abstain from. I don't know how I handle this, but do I read all of this and just not vote?
Well, actually, no, but you guys, we don't have a pro tem, do we? You guys have not done that yet. Why don't you just,
By the way,
somebody,
just on person, I don't, because I live in Stookie Farms, this has something to do with Stookie Farms. I figured that I needed to abstain. If I don't, then I'm more than happy.
you know, it's only if you have a financial interest of some sort in this. Just because you live there does not mean that you can't vote and talk about this.
My home in a different part of the development does not, it's not a financial interest.
No,
Okay, I'm good to go then.
you're in, the only interest would be in this piece itself.
Okay, nope, don't have it. I'm back in.
You're back in.
Little thing.
Tag it in the
All
tag
right,
it out.
this is a public hearing for another public hearing for consideration and recommendation of City Council. The zone change Z2103 to change from PUD to R110 single family residential, minimum 10,000 square foot lots. Approximately 3,000 east, 4,800 south. Applicant is Silverleaf Properties LLC. And Drew, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you. Applicants requesting approval as stated for changing of approximately 21.04 acres. The requested change is from the current zoning of Stookie Farms Planned Community Development, or Stookie Farms PCD, a proposed single-family residential 10,000 square foot minimum, or the R110 zoning designation. The request for the R110 is for the purpose of developing the 21.04 acres into a future residential development. This particular location, as stated on the general plan land use map, is designated as low-density residential. The low density allows for the zoning of R110 and R112. The surrounding zoning to this parcel is R110 to the north, Stookie Farms PCD, which is actually this being taken out of, to the east and the south, and then the City of St. George zoning to the west. Staff has no concerns with the proposed zone change as outlined. This area is currently part of the Stookie Farms master plan, but it is located on the other side of the ridge from the main development area of the Stookie Farms PCD proper. The owners and developers of Stookie Farms have been wanting to sell this parcel for quite some time and are fine with this area being vacated out of their PCD. Staff would like to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of Z-21-03 for the zone change request from Stookie Farms Planned Community Development PCD to the proposed single-family residential 10,000 square foot minimum, or known as the R110 zoning designation, onto the City Council. And that's based on the two simple findings in the report below. I'll be glad to answer any questions the commissioners have on this proposed zone change.
Commissioner Hanson. Drew, the only question I have is on the map where it shows the piece there, are they going to be responsible for the road that's going to run along the base of that ridge? Or is that somebody else that's responsible for that whole thing? Or is it just by developer as we move along up that ridge?
On Suki Farms side of the ridge or their side of the ridge on the west?
On their side of the ridge, like I thought we had talked about, there's a road that runs right to the right-hand side of this subdivision.
Well, it actually, it bends through here. It doesn't go all the way down. You can kind of see the road right here. There, sorry, you can't because I don't have my pencil on. But this is the road that's going to come through here and then go up like this. So
it's going to go, okay.
yeah, they'll just have to design off of it, you know, going down this direction. And they'll work with the developers up in this area.
So my question with this one, where it splits just the very tip of their development there, does it split enough to where there's no homes in the top left tip there, or will there be a home split by that road? Because that would be not a major road, but it's a decent sized road. I'm just wondering if there's houses on both sides of that going through their property.
Well, let me try to bring it up in here. And it kind of gives them more. I'm going to try to zoom in enough to get that. That's not giving me, you know, the property is basically, sorry, I need to pull my.
Yeah, you can see it.
I can see what I mean. I'm wondering if I'm verbalizing it correctly where you can understand it.
No, here's the road that comes like this. So I think it's on their north boundary and then it goes up this way.
Okay.
So they'll be responsible for this half of it, you know.
So it's not the one below that splits the tip of it.
No, this is not it.
Okay.
That's not, it comes off, this is the master plan road right through here. Let me click that on for you. See the green?
Yes.
That's it right there. And then the property is this. Let me just draw the property out for you guys.
So Drew, why are they trying to, to basically down zone it? Or down zone it, I guess. Because you're going from a PUD to a R110.
Well, for some reason, like I say, for a couple of years ago, Carl Larson, who kind of is the master developer of Suki Farms, has actually just had an idea to just turn this over to anybody. He tried to sell it a couple of years ago, but they tried to come in and it got denied. Someone was asking for like a medium high density, you know, to put a bunch of townhomes in this at one time. That got denied, but it's been known to me for quite a while that Suki Farms has just been trying to get this piece sold because it's on the other side of the ridge.
Yeah.
It really doesn't tie with their development. And so it's been up for sale for quite a while.
And so he's obviously got a buyer then wanting to.
Yes.
Okay.
And so it's just this piece. And again, it's just, they've been trying to get it off for a while. For what all the reasons, I don't know. I just know that they've been trying to sell it and take it out.
Is that the southern tip of Washington right there?
Well, sorry, let me, I'll bring on the municipal boundaries. So it's really not the southern tip of Washington because I'm going to scroll out.
I guess sorry, let me clarify. Is that the southern tip of Washington on that side of the ridge?
Well, somewhat, you know, the piece is right here. And you can see where the boundaries go and let me draw that on there for you again. And, you know, but you have the whole ridge right here. I'm going to put the ridge in green.
Knowing that area probably more than most because I live there, that seems like that's not developable, is it?
It's not what?
South of this development would not be something developable in Washington.
No, you got a big ridge that runs there. You can see it in the St. George side as well, you know, as we scroll a little farther down. And let me get rid of those lines for you. And I'll take the boundaries off real quick. But you can see this is the tip of the ridge, you know, that runs right through here. And so it's really rough terrain.
Yeah.
All through here.
All right. Any other comments or questions from the commissioners to staff? If, this is a public hearing. I'll open up on item 8A. Is there anybody in the chambers that would like to make a comment or anything that needs to be read in? There is none for that. That's proper English. But, I'll make a motion, or I'd like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing for item 8A.
This is Shill. I make a motion that we close the public hearing for 8A.
Commissioner Musso, I'll second.
Motion, Shield, second from Musso. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That closes the public hearing on 8A. Any other questions from the commissioners for staff or anybody else? If not, I look for a motion.
Commissioner Anderson, I make a motion to approve the zone change from PUD to R110 for silver leaf properties.
A motion by Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fitzonfu. Individual voting. Commissioner Musso.
Aye.
Commissioner Fitzonfu.
Aye.
Commissioner Shield.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
And Commissioner Hanson, aye as well. Item 8A passes unanimously on the City Council for recommendation for approval. That is the end of the items that we have this evening. Drew, is there anything that you or any of the staff need to add this evening before we close the meeting?
I will not keep you here any longer. We're good.
All right, excellent. I look for a motion to close the meeting.
Make a motion to close this meeting.
Commissioner Fitzonfu in a second.
Hey, I second that.
Sheila, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all, staff. Appreciate all your hard work, and we'll see you next time.